with, and he said stage 9's not a factor, I just want to keep on racing. Well, yesterday, as soon as stage 9 finished, he put out the tweet, stage 9 done, with a gif of Jack Black doing the proud salute. One vote for Richie Port for seeing the lighter side, and he obviously wanted to get through stage 9, or as others on the couch peloton wanted it referred to as
stage 8B.
The red number today being worn by yesterday's second place finisher, Tish Benut, who's got the domestic duties today of delivering biddens for their team leader in particular, for today's stage at least, Caleb Ewan, the sprinter. 2 votes goes to George Bennett. He was watching whilst getting a massage the cricket, the final, the World Cup between England and New Zealand, and he said that up until now, this last over has been the most stressful part of my Tour de France. Get up, black caps. Watching the cricket has been more stressful than the bike race. George Bennett, 2 votes. Always seen the lighter side, and that moves him into the outright lead. He now moves to 7 points ahead of Geraint Thomas, Alex Dowsett and Dylan Groenewegen on 5. But today, the 3 points, the 3 votes, they go to Vincenzo Nibali. He's been criticised by the Tifosi significantly.
And the shark bites back.
Some of the Tifosi just watch the Tour on TV, drink Coca-Cola, eat popcorn and criticise people on social media. I'm here racing.
So Vincenzo Nibali not willing to cop it from the keyboard warriors. Fair enough, a guy with his palmarès. He has just recently finished second in the Giro d'Italia.
You can't criticise the man.
Give a shark a break.
He lost time on the stage in Saint Etienne, and the Italian press and all those on social media are down his throat. That's precarious.
That's the most daring position I've seen taken up by a spectator. All right, it's a work day. They're not just tourists up there, but... Or you reckon they're just locals who've scaled it?
It's a public holiday. That is an attempt to get it on television.
Holiday. Oh, of course it is. Le 14 Juillet yesterday, Bastille Day. How could I forget the never-ending fireworks last night? The fireworks display went on for about an hour and a half. And that was here in Albi. And by far wouldn't have been the biggest one anywhere in France. It was really impressive.
Definitely not. In a moment, we're going to go through our other 3 awards. The disappointment of the day from yesterday, the unsung hero of the day, and the bike IQ. But before we get to that, we are going to take a look at the graphic with the wind direction.
Well, we checked out the wind forecast, and it was forecast to be between 15 and 20 kilometres an hour from the northwest, the race heading to the southwest, which means it was going to hit them in the right flank all day long whenever they weren't protected in one of those little gullies or down in the valleys. And you can see them along this ridge line. It is hitting them completely from the side. And look at this glorious sight. Saint-Côme-d'Ault.
And this village, you mentioned it as being a stunning village. It is listed as amongst the group in the association of the most beautiful villages in France. And the church that you can see, that goes back to the 16th century. The bell tower was struck by lightning in 1627 and had to be completely redone. And it is famous for the fact that it is a twisted bell tower that goes up to 42 metres.
And you can see that on the shape of the roof. You actually see that twist in it. And this is one of those towns when we talk about these historic and protected towns. You live in there, you're not allowed to do just whatever you want to your house. It has to be very, very specific. You need a roof repair. It's got to be with exactly the right material as prescribed by the council.
And
even painting the facade of your house, it's not on. You've got to stick with the colours. It's got to stay in the original stone. So if you're going to live there, you've got to stick to the rules and keep everything as it was, and it looks just amazing.
It is fabulous. The King of the Mountains jersey on the shoulders of Tim Wellens. Tish Benut just behind him, second yesterday. In front of him, one of the favourites for today, Caleb Ewan. I'm sure Caleb's manager will be watching with a sense of deja vu, perhaps, because it was here in Albi in 2007 where Cadel Evans won his first ever stage of the Tour de France. And at Signature Sport, the manager of Caleb Ewan, they also manage Cadel Evans. The breakaway out to 3 minutes and 3 seconds. The other 3 awards, the disappointment of the day yesterday, Robbie. Roger Federer, perhaps? 2 match points on serve, 40-15.
No.
The Kiwis, perhaps, a count back?
No, not into cricket, so no.
Rui Costa.
He was really disappointed in partly himself, partly the rest of the breakaway group that would not allow him to get across, and I think partly just by the presence of the director sportif who came up to dare to speak to him.
Yesterday, Rui Costa was the last rider that attacked from the peloton to try and go across to the breakaway. He was at 2 minutes. He got within 26 or 27 seconds.
23 even, I think I saw at one point. It was so close.
Definitely in the 20s. And then he did not make contact with the breakaway that won the stage. And our next two awards, the Unsung Hero and the Bike IQ, both relate to the breakaway. The Unsung Hero of the day was Marc Soler from Movistar. His main purpose for going in the breakaway yesterday was to protect Movistar's position in the team's classification.
As we fly in over Le Lot, the river that runs through this region.
This river runs for 485 kilometres, and for a long time it was a really important navigational route, particularly throughout a period before the railway lines were built in this area. No surprises to Koenig Quickstep, Lotto Soudal and Jumbo-Visma, but I'm staggered by the presence of Astana at the front, contributing to the pacemaking.
Hopefully someone asks them the question at the end of the day to find out what the purpose is of them riding, especially when it's their fastest man riding at the front. And as we spoke about before, it could just be that really simple one. Just want to get there.
Potentially.
How's the Serenity?
Got a two-stroke engine at the front as well. It is strong powerhouses at the front. I think Casper Asgreen now has come to the front for the Koenig Quickstep, followed then by Tony Martin. So we've got one more award to give. So it was disappointment of the day for Rui Costa, not making the break. Unsung hero Marc Soler for making the break. Bike IQ move of the day goes to Tish Benoot for a couple of reasons. Rui Costa was trying to come across and join them, and that made him a real danger to win the stage. So Tish went to the front on the climb, spoke to a few of the others and upped the tempo, and he made sure Rui Costa, former world champion, didn't make it. One less guy to worry about. Then he knew that he had in the group coming to that final climb fast finishers Oliver Naesen, Jasper Stuyven and Daryl Impey. So he went full gas up the climb. He got rid of two of them. He was rid of three of them for a while, but unfortunately for Tish Benoot, Daryl Impey was able to come across to him, was just too quick in the sprint. But I think he did everything right, and he was really smart throughout the day.
He did everything right. He's a really intelligent guy, Tish Benoot. Did everything right, as you've just explained, throughout the day. Even at the end, the sprint, he waited till Daryl Impey just looked back to the front and immediately started his sprint, as we see the sights around Espalion. And he got his handlebars in front, and he would have won Bike IQ Move of the Year had he just checked his speed and just caught Daryl Impey against the barriers and almost reversed into him and just held him in there, caged him. But I mean, it would have been a bold and, well, I think a move that he never even would have thought about. I think it's an instinctive sprinter move.
I think it is coming straight from one himself. This is the old palace now that we get the chance to take a look at. And it's opposite the ancient tannery homes from around about the 1500s. This is the Église Saint-Jean-Baptiste as well, which is one of the major tourist attractions in the centre of the town. And this was done by the Rodez-born architect, Grinda, neo-Gothic style, with red stone taken from local quarries in the area. It's topped by a bronze statue of the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph. The breakaway back under that 3-minute marker. They're at 2 minutes and 47 seconds. It's the head of the race. They start to turn towards the left. They pick up a bit more of the tailwind.
But after that Category 3 climb, the course goes more to the right. It'll still be
Alfredo
a
back
bit
in
from the
contact,
side. Oh, good on him. Well done. Still be a bit from the side, but a little bit more front on for the peloton after that Category 3 for around 20 kilometres. It is gusty though, so that forecast is right. 15 to 20 kilometres an hour with gusts up to 40. And certainly in this region, with all these little valleys and gullies, the wind can really get going as it funnels up some of these areas and then hit the road that the peloton is racing down, straight into the side of them.
The breakaway there into the forest just for a little while. They continue to descend, holding on to a 41-second advantage. The team cars, they'll be now taken off to the side of the road. It will just be a Mavic neutral service vehicle that is behind the break. Jumbo-Visma, a team that has already won 3 stages. The opening 2 days was Mike Turnison into Brussels with the surprise stage victory and the yellow jersey. A convincing win in the team time trial by 20 seconds to the better of Ineos. And then it was Dylan Groenewegen just a couple of days ago. Amongst the riders who have missed that split, no major contenders for the top 10 in the overall classification. But yesterday's stage winner, Daryl Impey, was one of the guys down at the back court in that second group. Also, no surprise to see a guy like Tim Wellens. He's been really active so far. The legs will be a bit tired. Jesus Herrada also back there. So riders who have been in the breaks and feeling the effects and thinking, this is just getting me to the rest day. That's all this stage is doing. So they were the ones dislodged at the back, just following the wheels back on in the peloton. But this will be an important point that Ineos will be racing towards, stay in control. As you said, on these fast downhills, very narrow, a little bit bumpy, the less riders in front of you, the less can go wrong. And Ineos know that all too well after the approach to Saint Etienne, because Michael Woods fell off right in front of Geraint Thomas. There's out at the top of the climb, perhaps, as we pan back. You can see the wind is blowing there, but the good news for the guys caught at the back of the peloton, on the climb, the wind won't be a factor as they go through the trees. It's about to start. The back of the group, Berhan, he'll want to get to the top to make it a clean sweep of the categorised climbs on stage 10.
With 38 seconds up their sleeve, what we've generally seen all day is the peloton just backing off a little bit on the climbs. They're on the Côte de la Marique, 3.6 kilometres, 4.7% average. 2 points on offer at the top for first, 1 point for the second rider across the line. The rest doesn't matter, and don't expect to see much competition amongst these riders to take it out. But if this tempo continues, Berhan is going to have to up the ante and go away from the rest in search of the points.
But I wonder if now that we've got Jumbo-Visma at the front, they've got control on a very narrow road, they won't want the pace to be too high for their sprinter Dylan Groenewegen. They may well try and close it down at the front and really back the pace off. At least if your main focus is Dylan Groenewegen for the stage victory, that's what they should be doing.
Well, Martin's main focus is looking after Steven Kruijswijk, but absolutely you're right. They should be backing off the pace to allow Dylan Groenewegen an easy ride up this climb, save the legs as much as possible, keep all that firepower intact. And finally in this tour, he showed us on stage 7 that intrinsically, at the moment, he's the fastest man in the peloton. It was really close with Caleb Ewan, who was coming late. But the well-timed acceleration of the Dutchman was enough.
And look at the front of the peloton now as they've hit the climb. Jumbo-Visma have tried to shut it down and really back off that pace. For the breakaway, they can't be holding out too much hope. Yesterday, Oliver Naesen, who was in that big breakaway group, he came in with the second contingent. He said he always believed, he always held out a bit of hope.
This is Le Viaduc de Vior.
And this one was inaugurated on the 5th of October, 1903. It was just a single-track viaduct. It was listed as a historical monument back in 1984. Cantilever girder bridge, some 460 metres across, and it stands at 116 metres above the river below. And it was another one of the competitions to try and get the job to build this bridge. And Gustave Eiffel of the Eiffel Tower, he applied, but he missed out on this occasion. And it was Paul Baudin who got the rights to be able to build this viaduct. Some 3,800 tonnes of metal involved in the construction of that. It's one of the, at the time it was created, it was one of the largest metal arches that was built.
And this is La Chapelle Notre Dame de la Planque.
And
it Tanus
translates essentially as plank. And the word coming back from the dialect of this area of Occitania. And it was built back in the 11th century.
With this region, Occitanie also hosted a tour most recently, won by the man on the left of screen. Right on cue, Alejandro Valverde, the world champion.
And look at the way the intensity has dropped off. But a guy like Valverde wants to make the most of this, to squeeze his way up towards the front. And the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, when he first entered the pro peloton, as a kid, his hero was Alejandro Valverde. And one of the first pro races that he rode, that Valverde was in, he asked one of the French guys that was riding one of the motorbikes that regulates the traffic in the race, who he knew spoke Spanish, if he could introduce him to Alejandro Valverde. And now they've had a really good rivalry in races like Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche-Wallonne, and Valverde really likes Julian Alaphilippe.
And they're such similar riders on the same sort of terrain that they perform, can climb that turn of speed, that real punch in the uphills, like on the Mur de Huy in Flèche-Wallonne, which Alejandro Valverde has won.
No, more.
4 or 5 times?
Oh, I don't want to get this wrong. I've got to check the notes for Valverde.
Yeah, have a look for me.
Wallonne, he has won it 5.
5 times.
Liège 4, Flèche-Wallonne 5. Alaphilippe has won Flèche-Wallonne twice.
Very, very similar. That really hard acceleration they can make on those steep slopes. They've really got some real low down power. Big torque is what they've got. It's not the high-end speed of real sprinters, but a lot of torque, and they can access it when they're right in the red zone. When everybody else goes over the edge, that's when they make that acceleration. When they get everybody right onto the absolute limit, and then they make the acceleration. They've just got that bit more, and it's a of Alejandro Valverde. But I tell you, as good as Alaphilippe is, and as great it is what he's done so far, still got a fair bit of catching up to do to match the palmarès of Alejandro Valverde.
Indeed he has, who has been a winner of a Grand Tour. He's finished 3rd at the Tour de France, and all those successes in one-day races, plus the rainbow jersey last year, which the man in yellow, Julian Alaphilippe, is targeting this year in Yorkshire.
So you look at how similar they are, and knowing that Alejandro Valverde has won a Grand Tour, why not for Julian Alaphilippe? And although he's saying, no, I'm not here for GC, just like Stephen Kruijswijk doesn't believe him at the moment.
Response: as long as he is in front of me, he is a rival.
He's a rival, and he'll see how long he can hang on to that yellow jersey.
This breakaway group, they're still holding. And spoke about this yesterday when he was chasing the 2 leaders, Daryl Impey and Tish Benoot. He still believed maybe they play cat and mouse, maybe we get back on. Now the peloton, things calm down, and what was down to a 40-second advantage for the break is back out to 1:30.
It's now more than doubled from what down.
Luke Rowe offering some food to Valverde.
Do you want a taste? Do you want a bit of variety? You've been on this Movistar team for a lot of years now. Want to try some of the stuff we got, and tomorrow I'll try some of your stuff.
He has been. But he started with the Calme team. That's where he made his debut in the pro peloton. But he joined Movistar under a different sponsor in 2005, and his contract runs until 2021. Keep in mind, April this year, he celebrated his 39th birthday.
It's already 15 years with the same team.
This group working really well together. It's a 6-man team time trial today.
Just 200 metres from the top of the climb. Burhan, he's the man on the front and going to take Mac.
Putting in a super performance, Burhan. Flying the flag for Eritrea, also for Kofidis, picking up more points in the King of the Mountains classification. In 5th, but Christian Eiking wants some points. Burhan, has he got the speed? We need the camera in front. It is Burhan who gets there.
I think Eiking was going to do it, and then Burhan looked sideways at him, and I wondered exactly what he would have said. But surely it would have been, you don't need them. Plus, Eiking won the sprint.
Yeah. And to his credit, number 152, when it came to the intermediate sprint, no word spoken there. They've got the job to get on with. When it came to that intermediate sprint, Burhan did not contest for any of the points because he'd taken all the...
I think it must have occurred to Aiking right near the top as he drew alongside Burhan. Oh, no, this is not the right thing to do. And just backed it off again. Certainly had the speed to beat him if he wanted to.
Maxim Moffort in the middle for Sudar Lotto. They're working for a man of speed, Caleb Bjorn, this afternoon. Tony Martin in the yellow colours. He's working for the arguably quickest sprinter. It's marginal between Caleb and Dylan Groenewegen. And off to the left, it's Stefan King, who is doing the job for their big hope in their overall standings, Thibaut Pinot.
For those at home who didn't catch the discussion a few days ago, it is Stefan King, the Swiss from FDJ. It is spelt K-U with a, I'm not sure of the name of the symbol on top of it, NG. So as English speakers, you are drawn to saying Kung. He says himself, it's pronounced King.
Which makes it easier.
So we're going with King.
It's been really intriguing hearing Michael Morkov, or Mikael Murku, and he says the Danish pronunciation, but he's more than happy to go with the anglicised version in the English language.
I think he's just heard it so much and he just gave up on it, rather than teaching everybody every time. Another one was, in English, you would pronounce it, just look at it and say, Egan Bernal. It's Egan Bernal.
And it's a name we'll be talking about. I'm tipping for about 15 years.
Yeah, let's get it right because it's going to be talked about a lot.
Tony Martin, we've been talking about him for a long time. It's the German version at the front who's doing the pacemaker. They just squeeze him through that car. And look at the damage, though, that it's done to the breakaway. It's back down to 1 minute and 20 seconds. Kalmajan is really struggling at the back of the peloton. He's had a tough season. You'd note that he's got number 1 at the end of his number, 171. He's the guy that the team thinks is their best prospect. He's their number 1. Not this year, he's not.
Well, maybe another sick rider in the peloton.
Rigoberto Urán, the rider in 3rd position in the pink colours. That's the one they're protecting.
You saw the effort he had to make. Langeveld, the classic specialist, the Dutchman, comfortable.
Robbie Alaphilippe now coming to the front. The yellow jersey himself, followed by Elia Viviani.
Well, Viviani, the sprinter, he is coming through to do a turn now. So you look at the trees in the background. That crosswind has picked up. Little uphill drag. Tim Wellens, he has let go. He says, well, I've done enough so far in this tour. I'm just going to roll on in and collect another one of these spotted jerseys.
There'll be no change in the King of the Mountains classification. Not today. That waits for the Pyrenees. There's the wind indicator. That's the breakaway at 105. Those cars will need to get called out in a hurry because this gap could close down in the blink of an eye.
Still all gradually downhill, and the course has swung back a little more to the left again, and that's why it's opened itself up to this crosswind. And Ineos come through. Luke Rowe, Geraint Thomas in here as well, Egan Bernal, Kwiatkowski, all present and accounted for.
This is the cross-off at the back. Those that will not be contesting for the stage honours. The blue colours of the Koenig Quickstep for the first time right at the front, Enric Mas.
Well, it's a small group at the front now. That is a much bigger split. Riders scrambling across the gap. Coming in 3s and 4s. A little bit bigger group coming behind.
67 kilometres per hour back in the peloton.
A lot of riders being offloaded. And it just shows you how difficult the first 10 days of this Tour de France has been.
The yellow jersey, Mr. Panache, is followed by Nairo Quintana.
Oh, look at this at the back. The suffering, the panic, trying to stay in contention. These 4 riders, they are now in huge trouble.
That is good riding by Nairo Quintana, who doesn't have teammates around him. He's looking after himself. Quintana is riding with the confidence of the Nairo of 2013-14.
Bit of a narrowing, swinging through to the right-hand side. Still, we'll be picking up a little bit of crosswind. A couple of riders rejoining the back. Big chase group coming into that same spot. A long single file line. And that is giving it up here at the back. The AG2R rider, he says, that's enough. I can't cross that.
This is Viviani at the front. One of the favourites for the sprint finish. He's making it difficult for the sprinters.
That was Benoit Cosnefroy who was being offloaded. Been active in this tour. Had a crash as well on day 1.
Oh, look at that in the gutter. And the pink colours of EF Education First, who started it, they're starting to get shuffled backwards.
Well, they started it, but it looks at the moment like Ineos along with De Koenig Quickstep, are going to finish it. 46 seconds the gap. That has been halved. 32 kilometres to go. This is not what the sprinters will have wanted on the run-in. Marc Soler.
Yes, it is, from the breakaway yesterday. This is Matteo Trentin now coming through in the white, and he's got Adam Yates behind him. Good riding by Matteo Trentin.
Pre-stage that we've been talking about, Matteo Trentin, it's for you, ride the sprint. But first, we must make sure Adam's looked after. Get to a situation like this, Trentin, immediately switch roles, look after him, make sure we're okay. He's got to make sure he gets in a wheel, saves energy, not get caught out. This is not over yet.
He's in a good position. He's behind Kwiatkowski. Moscon. And then, now, and look at all the riders in pink from EF Education First. They tried to start it, and now they're paying the price. They are chasing. That is the second group on the road. Don't start a fight, you can't finish. In cycling, don't start an echelon, you can't finish.
Well, this one has really blown up in their face. For EF, started quickly. They wanted to be aggressive. They knew the right moment was coming, but your timing has to be pinpoint accurate. This is going to be the third group on the road, I imagine.
This is Mohoric from Bahrain Merida. Magnus Cort Nielsen is there for Astana. Lars Back is in this group, and we've seen Lars at the rear of the race a lot throughout this year's tour.
And also Dylan Turns back here. Luke Durbridge.
Yes,
Pollitt.
Durbridge. And still Bennett. This is bad news for the Kiwi. Bennett is in that group. He starts today in 4th place overall.
Stack Lungen, along with a teammate, 1, 2, 4.
Costa.
That's Costa.
Bonifacio was in that group for Total Direct Energy. Well, one rider has been eliminated from the general classification today, and it looks like, unfortunately, it's one of our favourites, the climbing Kiwi. It is Bennett, who is in that third group on the road. And that crosswind is exactly that. It's not crosshead, it's not cross-tail, it's cross.
So we said after the climb, it went a little bit more around to the right, the course. Now it swung back to the left, almost heading directly in a southerly direction. And that really opens them up to a tail crosswind.
Michael Matthews from Sunweb.
A lot of the sprinters getting involved. The safest thing to do is do a turn. You stay in that line. You do one little turn on the front, but the rest of the time you're protected perfectly in the wheels. So the best form of defence is to be amongst that attack.
In the chasing group, behind the split, Thibaut Pinot, Jakob Fulsang, Richie Ports. They're on the back foot. It can change on any day. They are paying the price. Here they come. This is the chase. Education First, Groupama FDJ, Trek Segafredo. It is desperation.
Well, it's absolutely all hands on deck here in the chase now in the final 30 kilometres. Education First, they knew the opportunity was coming. Maybe just jumped the gun a little bit. And when the moment really was right, it was De Koenig Quickstep and Ineos who took over at the front.
Well, they've gotten their metaphorical shoelace caught in the chain. They've put themselves in a bad position. There's the sprinter, Dylan Groenewegen. And they've got some work to do to close it down. Uran, Fulsang, Pinot, Nibley, Ciccone. Bennett's in the next group further back. There's Bolka Mollema. There is Richie Port just going through the screen.
A couple of riders, Jasper de Burst, Max Schachmann, Jonathan Castroviejo. So Dylan Groenewegen is one of the big losers at the moment. Even Ciccone is there as well.
Well, he is back there, part of the Trek Segafredo team, to try and save the tour for Richie Port. He's made it through stage 9, but can he get through stage 10 without losing a big chunk of time?
This group is the first one on the road behind the breakaway.
The biggest loser today, time-wise, for a high place overall, is number 82 in yellow, George Bennett. Started the day in 4th place. Another look at where they are on the road. The breakaway, all of a sudden, seems insignificant. The peloton contains the defending champion, Geraint Thomas, likewise Nairo Quintana and Egan Bernal. In the second group, Richie Port, Thibaut Pinot and Jakob Fulsang. In the next group, further back, it's the Kiwi, George Bennett.
And as far as the wind goes, it is not going to get any easier. It's still going to be hitting them on the side all the way in. And in fact, the run into Albi, they'll even pick up a tailwind, make the gap incredibly hard to close.
Tony Martin in this group. So too Marco Haller. Luke Durbridge is here. This is Chris Juliensen. The riders from Astana. This is Bennett. This is the last group on the road. George Bennett, he said it was a tough day yesterday to watch the cricket. It will be even tougher today. If only he wasn't collecting the biddens when he was. He has spent so much time at the front throughout this year's race. One momentary lapse, and it wasn't really a lapse in concentration. It was the call by the sports director to go back and collect biddens.
The lead group about to turn a little bit more to the right, a very short section where it won't be as much crosswind. It'll start to be a little bit more into the face. But I don't think that's going to be long enough for what is here, the second peloton at 38 seconds. It's not going to be a long enough section for them to close down. It's 27 seconds, the difference. This is the peloton at 10 seconds with the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe.
And it is Marcus Burkhardt who was on the fronts. Plenty of riders in there from Ineos. Likewise, Sunweb for Michael Matthews. The yellow jersey is there. This is a desperate chase. This is William Bonnet now coming through for Groupama FDJ. This is the group of the big French hope, Thibaut Pinot.
Also, Jakob Fuglsang, also Richie Port, George Bennett back here, but his teammate Grossglockner is in the front.
Yes, so that's good news for Jumbo-Visma. And Bennett is in the group behind that.
This one.
Incredible.
So the cooperation in the chasing group, the second peloton on the road, is Trek Segafredo for Port, FDJ for Thibaut Pinot, and Astana for Jakob Fuglsang. But this is a big opportunity for the GC favourites who have made the front split, drive it all the way in and take some time on a really unexpected occasion.
In distance, the gap between the Geraint Thomas group and the Thibaut Pinot group is 550 metres.
We've said it a number of times this week, even on the flat stage, expect to be a sprint. You cannot afford to let your guard down and get caught out. I think on this occasion, as much as maybe letting their guard down very slightly, they've just been ridden out of the wheel on power and speed when the riders who are better at riding in the crosswinds have just given it everything, and the pure climbers have been shot out the back.
And in all that drama, the breakaway of 6 have just been caught. Hugo
Huller.
This is a disappointing day for George Bennett.
This is a big blow for Benton. I think they even took the wrong side of that roundabout. You saw riders pass them and shoot out on the left-hand side in front of them. Pace has now gone out of this group. Look at the front. The organisation's gone a little. Dylan Van Baal on the front. It is now Bora Hansgrohe coming back to the front to increase the pace again. That might just be enough for the group behind to get a sniff and make that last push to cross the gap.
The group behind won't pause. That could be the difference as we pan back. The gap's still big. It's strung out in single file, but the gap, yes, it is. It's still big. It's 400 metres. That's Richie Port himself, by the looks of it, going towards the front. No, that's Julian Bernard. Next in line is Tom Scoins. Then it is Anthony Roux from Groupama FDJ. His head is bobbling away.
They can't afford for anybody to sit back and not do a turn here. As we said before, Pinot came through, did a turn. Richie Port also needs to go through and ride at the front every contribution if they're going to shut this down. Chasing Ineos and Bora, who are the big drivers of this group. Now De Koning Quickstep have taken a back seat looking after Elia Viviani, and we're due to get a little bit more crosswind again. It swung right the course, more west. It's going to swing south again. The wind is going to come in from the side.
And Valverde is playing the role of the super domestique. He knows that Nairo Quintana is in that front group. Other big rivals are in the second group. So Valverde is pushing the tempo.
Luis Leon Sanchez coming through in the front for Astana. They pick up Mickey Scher all day in the break. He'll just drift through and out the back. Walt van Aert, I thought I saw in this group. Groenewegen further back. So the big sprinter for Jumbo-Visma missing out on the move as well. Caleb Ewan hasn't been spotted, but I imagine he must be in the front or we would have seen him.
He's the shortest rider in the race. He can sometimes be a little difficult to find. This is Lutsenko, followed by Sanchez. Then Kruiswijk from Jumbo-Visma off to the right-hand side of the screen. In the situation. Roman Kreuziger is with the green helmet on, just behind the yellow jersey, as Alaphilippe collects from a Soigneur on the side of the road.
Viti, the big Spaniard in blue, behind Kwiatkowski, ready to come through. Nelson up there. Luke Rowe further back, gritting the teeth. Warren Barguil has made the move, the French champion.
I could sense the little hint of surprise in the tone of your voice with Warren Barguil.
The gap is now 230 metres, but going uphill, so the time gap is still about the same, 29 seconds. This is George Bennett, a minute and a half behind the front of the race.
And more importantly than that,
Movistar, they now sense a huge opportunity for Nairo Quintana. Get rid of some other contenders. Fuglsang, Pinot, Richie Porte. This one is going to go all the way to the line.
Ciccone, he's in the second group, second in the overall classification. He's in the second group on the road. Adam Yates is there for Mitchelton Scott. He is right behind Geraint Thomas from Ineos. The gap, 24 seconds, 400 metres on the road. Quick catching from Geraint Thomas from the Soigneur on the side. Egan Bernal doing the same. Matteo Trentin collecting from an Ineos Soigneur on the side of the road. Not one of his team helpers, but they were happy to give him a bid on nonetheless.
Nelson Oliveira. Then it's Luke Rowe, Moscon, Dylan Van Baal.
Kees Bol at the back for Sunweb. This is the first group on the road, so that's good news for Michael Matthews, who is still in this group.
There is Caleb Ewan.
Caleb was in there. So you just caught a glimpse of his skin suit. This is Lutsenko. Behind him is Ciccone, the white jersey, the best young rider. Fourth in line is Richie Porte. Third in line is Jakob Fuglsang. Sixth in line, or seventh, it is Thibaut Pinot. They're the three big hopes for the general classification. They need to throw everything at it. Bad day for Bennett. Very bad day for George Bennett. So unfortunate. The Kiwi was loaded up with bidons at just the wrong moment.
Well, they're on the top of this hill at 200 kilometres covered with 17 and a half to go. This is the best opportunity for the chasing group to close it down. 16 seconds. This is where the contenders like Fuglsang, Porte, Pinot have got to do everything they can to cross the gap, because if this group here gets across this plateau and starts the downhill, it's good night, Irene.
This is Gianni, not Irene at the front. It's Moscon who's charging, followed then by Van Baal.
You could see them in the background, just back of screen. You could spot the chase group. It's getting closer, 13 seconds. Nervous moments for the directors in the team cars. They're getting close. Still a lot of work to do to get this shut down.
It's never over until it's over. We've seen it a couple of times already with riders trying to join a breakaway. They're almost there. And riders from this group have been spat out the back door.
They're starting to lose helpers.
That's how high the tempo is.
That's Fuglsang, goes through and off the front. Who's coming through next? Richie Porte it is. Reichenbach behind him. Pinot. More riders of Trek Segafredo. This is a team's time trial.
And the top of that little hill, you saw the 3D graphic. That is crunch time for the chasing group at 13 seconds. It's a long 13 seconds, and it's a small group. It's a really small group.
It's only really the favourites and a couple of helpers left in this group. Really time to get it shut.
Rigoberto Urán, it was his team that started it all. That is incredible. That might be Guillaume Martin from Montegroup Goubert at the back.
Well, the gap, 200 metres on the road.
Dan Martin, is it?
Fabio Aru.
Fabio Aru. 1-2-2 is Fabio Aru. And just in front of him is Sergio Henao. So Fabio Aru was in that group. He's been distanced from sitting on the wheels. That's how hard they're riding.
Well, had that tough little rise. They're on to that little downhill section now. And so tantalising. See this group riding in front. Yves Lampart comes through, keeping the pace high. Kwiatkowski been doing a lot of work as well.
Postelberger now for the Bora Hansgrohe team.
Nelson Oliveira pushing on for Nairo Quintana.
Into the tuck position.
Amador.
And it is Guillaume Martin. A flick of the elbow from Fabio Aru. They're in real trouble.
They're in huge trouble. That is the chase group right in front of them with Richie Porte, Jakob Fuglsang, Rigoberto Uran.
Meanwhile, for Fabio Aru, the good news is for UAE, his teammate Dan Martin, the Irishman, who's been a top 10 finisher, is in the front group.
For this group here, the only good news at the moment is that De Koning Quickstep have taken a back seat in that front group and starting to look after the interests of Elia Viviani and whoever's left to do a lead-out.
In that chasing group at 12 seconds, Rigoberto Uran, Thibaut Pinot, Richie Porte, Jakob Fuglsang. Fabio Aru will not be catching that group.
Importantly for support there, Mollema for Richie Porte, Lutsenko for Fuglsang. There's still some firepower in that group.
Ciccone, the white jersey, best young rider.
Think he's still there.
Think, likewise.
There's been a lot of riders jettisoned from that group in the chase, and they're just not quite able to get it closed. De Koning Quickstep, they're still committing Yves Lampart to driving the pace on the front.
Ciccone has lost contact with that group. You can see by the general classification he's slipping backwards.
Just looking at the fact that De Koning Quickstep are letting Yves Lampart ride on the front, the jersey of Alaphilippe is safe, but that as contenders off the back like they are, I think he's starting to think about GC, and I'm assuming that Enric Mas is also comfortably in this group.
I think he will be. So that is to the benefit of the entire De Koning Quickstep team. They're chasing all of the prizes. You can see the gap on the road. They're not closing it down. It's stabilised the gap for the last little bit. And for the riders in this group, it might start to go in the wrong direction.
I think it is going in the wrong direction. Race radio telling us 300 metres the gap between the two groups. Looks like the impetus is starting to go out of it. They're trying as hard as they can, but they're starting to struggle.
It's not for lack of effort. This is Rudy Mollard. Is it at the back, number 53? No, it's David Goudot, the young climber. David Goudot at the rear for Groupama FDJ. And number 163 in this group from Sudalolo, that is Jasper de Boost. He's not going to work.
No, he's got Caleb Ewan in the front. No. And now the car's going through in between. That signifies the gap is opening. Neutral spares follow through the official Tour de France director's car.
It was down to 12 seconds. It's back out to 23 seconds. Valverde with a flick of the elbow. Luke Rowe, I wonder what he had to say to Alejandro. Burkhardt, then Oss, then Quintana, then Yves Lampart, followed by Kwiatkowski, the next in the red and black colours.
The chasing group, they can't afford to lose their morale. It's yo-yoed, it was way out, it came back into 12 or 13 seconds. Now, pace here at the front are going to start to tire. They've got to keep pushing on, hope for just a lull in the pace that they can close back in. 14.5 kilometres to go.
One of the questions that has been asked regularly throughout the first week and in the lead up to the race, who's the leader at Movistar? Is it Quintana or Mikel Landa? It's Nairo Quintana because he's in Group 1. Mikel Landa is in Group 3.
Richie Porte just coming back off the front. The yellow helmet looking sideways, getting himself in. There is the crosswind. You can see it on the Union Jack flying. And their team, Ineos, has been doing some big damage.
At the back of the group for Astana with the bandages still on from the crash on day one, it's Jakob Fuglsang.
It looks like they put in their maximum effort on that little uphill trying to close the gap down completely. When they didn't get it shut, the gap has blown back out.
Ciccone in white, just in front of him is Mikel Landa from Movistar. Yep. So no longer a two-pronged attack from Movistar. It's just one. It's just Nairo Quintana.
No, that is Group 3, 1 minute and 6 seconds behind the lead of the race. 650 metres between the leading peloton and the group with Pinot, Richie Porte, Jakob Fuglsang. and Rigoberto Urán. So some big contenders for a possible podium in this Tour de France, being ridden out of it at the moment on a quite innocuous-looking transfer stage before the rest day.
Never a dull moment. Not when the wind springs up. In fourth position is the Colombian climber Bernal.
He doesn't miss moves like this.
He did. This is how he won Paris-Nice. Well, this was a big part of it. He was in the front, crosswinds.
Kilometres ago, Ineos came to the front with Luke Rowe, increased the pace, a little tester, and as soon as they knew it was the right moment in the finale, after EF started it, Ineos are going about finishing it now.
This is Mike Turnison at the back of this group. 35 seconds for the Thibaut Pinot group, which includes Richie Porte, Jakob Fuglsang, and also Rigoberto Urán. The white jersey group that also includes Vincenzo Nibali, Ciccone in this group at 1:10.
Is Dylan Groenewegen still in this group? He was earlier, but I think he might have been offloaded on that little climb.
Yeah, well, either way, he's out of contention for the sprint finish.
This our chase group now at 40 seconds with Porte, Thibaut Pinot, Fuglsang with Lutsenko in front of him, Rigoberto Urán, number 91. Back of that group, Godot, number 53, struggling to get the wheel.
Thibaut Pinot really struggling at the rear of the group as well. This, with 11 kilometres to go, a little bit more, it's going to be over a minute by the time they reach the finish.
It is looking like it. They got it into 12 seconds. That was as close as they got. And it seems that has really burnt this group. And they cannot get it closed.
Sonny Colbrelli is in the front group for the sprint finish. So too is Michael Matthews. Peter Sagan we've seen. We think we've spotted Caleb Ewan. This is group number 3 that we're on board with.
That's Nelson Oliveira, who is just going out the back of that group.
Also at the back here from Dimension Data, Ben King. No surprise.
This is the group then with Landa.
Yes. So we know who the team leader is now.
Alexander Kristoff also in this group, number 126 from UAE. Another sprinter missing from the front. Looking like Colbrelli is in front, Viviani is there, and so is Caleb Ewan.
Another one in there, don't discount him. You'll like this, Greg Van Avermaet.
Well, I thought he might try and anticipate and go early. There's a lot of guys missing out of this front group who'd form the lead-out train. Could be becoming the perfect situation for a late attack and before the sprinters want to go hard.
At the midway point on the stage, 100 kilometres to go, our discussion was the harder it is, the better it is for Greg Van Avermaet. Hard enough for you? It's hard. It's hard for these guys. What a demoralising day to go into the first rest day for number 71, Jakob Fuglsang. Likewise, 51, Thibaut Pinot, 91, Rigoberto Urán, and also the leader for Trek Segafredo, 131, Richie Porte. This is Rudy Millar at the back of the group for Groupama FDJ.
And this just illustrates why you've got to consider every single stage of the Tour de France as crucial. Can happen at any given moment. On a day where we even thought there's not enough wind to really split it to pieces, you get the right gust of wind on the right part of the course, it suddenly opens up, and then teams seize that opportunity to go on with it.
The gap is out to 750 metres, so they won't be able to see them. That is demoralising.
This will be a minute. This will be over a minute by the time they reach the finish.
I think we're heading north of 60 seconds. Sleep for the men in this group. It was all looking so positive for the man in pink, the Colombian climber, Rigoberto Urán. He had the confidence to put his team on the fronts. Now he's the one that is paying the price. Warren Barguil, the French national champion. He won't be sprinting to stage on us, but he will have a boost of confidence by being in this group. 62, the world champion. That is Alejandro Valverde. 2:16 at the back. That's the former under-23 world champion, Kevin Ludanois. At the front for De Koning Quickstep, it's the young Dane, Kasper Asgreen. This has gone from a day of transition, one for the sprinters, to a day where the general classification has taken a real shake-up. Kwiatkowski driving it for Ineos. They know that they are putting the sword to a few of the key rivals for the defending champion, Geraint Thomas.
Oh, we've seen them do it in other tours before. They take the opportunity when it presents itself and then take full advantage. This is Pinot, number 51, one of the big losers of today, along with Fuglsang, Port and Uran. Big contenders and massively caught out on this stage.
51, often referred to as the lucky number in cycling. That is a myth. It's not a lucky number for number 51 in 2019. A minute and 10 seconds.
1 kilometre on the road, the gap between these two groups. It's just going to be a matter of how big a time gap is it. And it's now Sunweb on the front for Michael Matthews. Plenty of teammates.
5 riders from Sunweb in this diminished front group. They are the second best or equal best representative team.
On the wheel of Matthews, Caleb Ewan. Behind him, Peter Sagan. He'll be flat out getting a slipstream there. So many riders here from Sunweb. 5 in a row for Michael Matthews. Under 2 kilometres to go. Caleb Ewan, Colbrelli has fought his way onto his wheel. Peter Sagan behind him. Ewan has got to watch out he doesn't get swamped and boxed in.
And Matteo Trentin, he is behind Alia Viviani, who has Max Richesi just in front of him.
Jasper Philipsen up here for UAE, no Alexander Kristoff, but the young
Max
Belgian
Philipsen,
who was 5th a few days ago, is here.
In the white.
He's tracking Viviani.
He is in the white, about 12th position.
Next to him, Viviani, just in front, Max Richesi. Sunweb in control. 3 men left in front of Michael Matthews. Caleb Ewan riding the slipstream of him. The battle on behind. Colbrelli, Sagan behind him. Someone else up alongside. And Wout van Aert.
He's there in the black and the yellow colours. Richesi is being stalked by Matteo Trentin. Oliver Narsson is there for AG2R. 1 kilometre. Wout the Magnificent.
Well, Wout van Aert, he showed us in the Dauphiné, he's got horsepower at his disposal. It was going to be all about Groenewegen today. So was stage 1 and Teunissen won it. Today, no Groenewegen. Wout van Aert survives, takes on the best sprinters and beats them.
4 stage wins for the team. 3 different riders plus the team.
Cyclocross world champion. It was a battle with Elia Viviani. From the overhead, in control at the front with Sunweb. They started to come. Caleb Ewan forced to go early when they went. He just got through the middle, and here he just started to fade. Van Aert in front. Viviani got over the top. Viviani just hit the front, and then Van Aert, he fought back. Caleb Ewan 3rd, Michael Matthews 4th. It's the throw on the line that gets it. Van Aert, the extension. Viviani just hunched. That is the difference in the stage win. The Belgian, a much better throw over the Italian.
Which is not what you would expect given the track background of Alia Viviani. And the contrast between first and second, tears of joy to tears of disappointment. La Cathedral, Saint-Cécile, a day of prayers for those that lost time in the battle for the general classification, a day of celebration for Wout van Aert, and another win for Jumbo-Visma. Viviani in second, another 3rd place finish for Caleb Ewan. Michael Matthews in 4th, Sagan was 5th, Philipsen 6th, Colbrelli 7th, followed by Matteo Trentin, Oliver Narsson, and Greg van Avermaet rounding out the top 10 on a day packed full of drama. Here's a look again at the general classification. Alaphilippe 112 ahead of the defending champion Geraint Thomas. Egan Bernal at 116. It's then Kruijswijk, who rode well again today. He's in 4th. Bookman is in 5th. Enric Mas continues to impress in 5th. Adam Yates likewise. Nairo Quintana is the man for Movistar. Dan Martin, very good. Giulio Ciccone, he's in 10th position at 2 minutes and 32 seconds behind, but he's heading in the wrong direction. His teammate Richie Porte, almost 4 minutes behind. After the destruction by Simon de Montfort, the citadel in Saint-Marcel, they moved through to this region to be able to produce this town. The town was a subject of cruelty throughout the Inquisition as well, and was took a big part in the uprising against those practices. Throughout the Middle Ages, it was well known for its leatherwork and cloth and embroidery up until around about 1920. And it is classified as one of the most beautiful towns in France. It's also a stopover on the way of St. James, and it has a well in the centre of the town, which is covered, but the well goes to the depths of 113 metres. Also got a museum in there to sugar and chocolate. Doesn't sound too healthy, but sounds pretty tasty.
Well, sounds like it's worth a visit. 2 minutes 25 for our breakaway of 4. They're racing the first 54 kilometres of this stage through the department of the Tarn. They cross into the Tarn and Garonne, the two rivers that converge, and they'll end up in the Haute-Garonne as they come into Toulouse.
This is Rosetto at the front, his third time in a breakaway. He's had the red number throughout this year's race, so he's had an opportunity to step up onto the podium. He collected the red number, incidentally, on the opening stage when he was in the breakaway with Greg Van Avermaet, who didn't spend too long in the breakaway, just did enough to collect the points for the King of the Mountains jersey and guarantee himself a spot on the podium. Their 4 leaders out in front, holding on to a 2:25 advantage. It won't get too much more than that, I don't think. Let's take a look at Rigoberto Urán. He's been second in this race in the past. On stage 10, he lost a big chunk of time, but he's one of the sport's great characters. Église Saint-Pierre and Saint-Paul. Moving along pretty quickly at this point, the breakaway group. Tiny little village that they're going through, just a couple of hundred residents in this little village. Rigoberto Urán is a rider that would have been really disappointed with stage 10 as well. His team went to the front to try and shake things up, but they started an echelon, they couldn't finish.
There's been a number of analogies used to describe the way it went down for EF 2 days ago in the race into Albi, because they did start the hostility. Simon Clark got them up to the front and started putting the pressure on when the wind was building and starting to really hit them on a more open section of the course. And it has been said things like they started a fight they couldn't finish. They started a fire they couldn't put out. Even heard it said it's like walking up to the likes of a heavyweight boxer, punching him in the face and then standing there with your hands behind your back.
This is Michael Matthews. He'll be throwing some punches at the end, metaphorically, of the stage today. He's not one of the favourites to win the stage because it's just not difficult enough at the end. He wants a slightly uphill finish, but he looked a little flat on stage 10 when he was in a good position. He had really good team support around him for the first time.
He did, and each sprint is so different from every other. There's so many little factors that come in, and sometimes being led out and on the front is not ideal. And he had 4 teammates in front of him. Then it was him, then it was Caleb, but it was Michael Matthews and Caleb who looked to be struggling the most in the sprint, heavy, a bit bogged down, where the others came flying out of the wheels and over the top of them. I just think after the efforts they've made in the crosswinds and those tough little hills towards the end of the stage, maybe just riding at the front and getting a little less slipstream cost them coming right into the end, because there was that little uphill kick just before the sprint started, and the others just seemed to be coming with a little more momentum from behind. It was like the speed was going down at the front and the others were able to anticipate well and come over the top.
A lot has been made about the socks when it was the team time trial. They measured the sock height. You can see the socks here of Michael Matthews. They are very high. It's not just about fashion. It doesn't come down simply to how they look. There's aerodynamics thought about in terms of those socks, and they're not the normal cotton socks that you would buy at the bike shop. They make the claim with the aero testing that the socks will save them around about 3 watts in terms of power output required to go at the same speed that they may be going at. It's a claim that I can't confirm, but it's one that has been published a few times. With the peloton now into containment mode of the breakaway, let's go early and move into the media medal. The Tour media medal at the top of the table is George Bennett on 7 points. He currently leads. And then Geraint Thomas, Alex Dowsett, Dylan Groenewegen, they're on 5 points. Michael Woods on 4. They have one more Category 4 climb to come on today's stage. It's just 2.5 kilometres long with an average grade of less than 4%. That one tops out at 90 kilometres to go, so there's still a fair way before they reach the base of that. Then 10 kilometres later on at 80 k's to go, there is a sprint for the points in the race for the green jersey. That intermediate sprint, and I'm looking forward to seeing who gets involved in that sprint from back in the peloton. There's still plenty of points up for grabs as it goes from first all the way down to 15th place to collect points in the race for green. We've seen Sonny Colbrelli from Bahrain Merida very active in those intermediate sprints. Michael Matthews has been conservative, so too has Peter Sagan, who continues to defend his lead in that classification. Relaxing way to spend the summer holidays. The peloton was invited. It was a public holiday on Monday for Bastille Day. It was the 15th of July then, not 14 Juillet. That was on the Sunday, but the public holiday, that was held on the Monday. Back at the rear of the peloton, Dimension Data, they've had a pretty quiet sort of a tour so far. The biggest talking point has been the fight by Edvald Bosenhagen to get back in contact on the stage that was into Colmar.
Well, Matt, the Tour de France is not the only race going on in July. Of course, it's the one that gets the most publicity and has the big name riders. Of course, it's in the Tour of Austria. Last week, it finished. An interesting race at the moment is the Tour of Qinghai Lake in China. And we spoke just before about the Puy Henri de Grange, the highest point of this Tour de France at 2,770 metres. Well, the Tour of Qinghai Lake, yesterday's stage, it was a stage with 2 climbs. The highest point on that stage, 3,745 metres above sea level.
That's nosebleed territory.
Guess which country had the riders who were first and second on the stage, considering those altitudes?
Colombia.
Yep, correct. So more Colombians coming through. We've already spoken a lot about guys like Quintana, Uran, and now the youngest of these big-name riders, Egan Bernal. You look at the altitudes they're used to. I'm really looking forward to some of their performances above that 2,000 metre mark where it really starts to bite in. And it looks like they've got more riders waiting in the wings to follow in their footsteps over the next few years. But those altitudes there, that race in China, approaching 4,000 metres above sea level.
Well, the intermediate sprint was at 2,200 metres on that stage.
And that is where the plateau, that's one of the flat stages. They're all run above 2,000 metres.
And there was a sprint stage one there at the start of the race to get underway by Brenton Jones, the young Australian sprinter who rides with the French team, Dalco Marseille. 2:25, this main peloton, they've really kept a tight handle on that breakaway group. They haven't given them too much time at all to play with. Three teams at the front doing the chasing. Jumbo-Visma, they've won 4 stages already in this race. To Koenig Quickstep, they've managed to pick up a couple of stage victories. Alaphilippe along with Viviani, plus they've got Julian Alaphilippe in the yellow jersey. Soudal Lotto, they're chasing. They've had a stage victory already. That's courtesy of Thomas de Gent. But today they are working for their sprinter, Caleb Ewan. This is Lilian Calmejean, the rider that initiated this breakaway, leaving his hometown of Albi.
A stage like tomorrow's with 130 kilometres on flat roads before 2 final climbs and then down to the finish. That's one the sprinters call a mental rest day. Just follow the wheels all the way through to the start of the climb, then just ride your own pace like it's a training ride through to the finish. It's a rolling day off.
Well, the intermediate sprint on tomorrow's stage, that comes with 79 kilometres to go, just as they hit the base of the Col de Peyrasourde. So before the first Category 1 climb, and it's when they go through the town of Bagnères de Luchon, one of the most visited towns in the history of the Tour. I can't help but wonder if Michael Matthews might try to sneak in the move there, and Peter Sagan would mark him if he does try to go.
He'll definitely mark him. He'll definitely mark him if he tries to go in the break. And even if, say, it's only a group of 5 or 6 up the road and there's still points available at the intermediate sprint, the guys who want those points, they can afford to sprint full gas for it, because then they can just recover from it on the lower slopes of the Peyrasourde, lose a chunk of time, be dropped, and just roll their way in. So nothing to lose and nothing to worry about. It's not like they have to save themselves, say, oh, I won't sprint too hard because there's a climb coming. There'll be no danger for the time limit.
2:25 from the chalkboard, 2:13 courtesy of the GPS tracking with the breakaway and the main peloton. They're on the climb, 2 kilometres before they get to the top. Another riders in this breakaway group, currently being led by Ahmed de Ghent, number 193. None of them are a threat to the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, which is the Belgian Tim Wellens.
Well, this one just a Category 4 climb. It's average gradient, less than 4%, 2.5 kilometres long. Only 1 point available at the top. On the first climb of the day, it was Anthony Perez who went across the top, took the 2 points.
You can see the bandages once again on Alexis Villemos in these hot conditions, 31, 32 degrees, the maximum forecast at the finish line in Toulouse. It would be horribly, horribly uncomfortable. He has said he's struggling to sleep. It's Perez who wants to lead over the top of the climb, and that is more than understandable on local roads. Will he be challenged by Lilian Calmejean? The stage started in his hometown of Albi. Calmejean in blue sits and waits and lets Anthony Perez collect. 1 point at the top of the climb.
And the gap heading back out to 2.5 minutes. On the lower slopes, you could see with the body language of the breakaway, they weren't riding as anywhere near as hard as they could. It was if they were almost backing into the peloton, saying, you're going to have to let us go a bit more, otherwise you're going to roll up to our back wheels. The peloton switches off a bit. Now the pace has gone back on in that breakaway group, and very quickly taken almost 30 seconds back again.
Oh, the break got caught very early on stage 10 because of the intensity from the peloton with the crosswinds. We are hearing reports that the breeze is picking up a little bit. It was 12 kilometres per hour. It's now moved up to around about 16 kilometres per hour. A big day tomorrow for the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe. He has said he is not letting himself dream about yellow in Paris. He's been enjoying the experience so far. How much longer does he have in that jersey? When he first collected it, Thomas Vauclair, the Frenchman who spent 2 10-day stints in various tours in that yellow jersey, said that he'd hold it until Pau, the individual time trial, which is 2 days away.
And I tend to think he's right. I think he will manage to come in to Bagnères de Bigorre with the race favourites on the first Pyrenean stage. If not with them, only just behind. I think whatever he's behind, if he is on that second climb, he'll catch up quite a lot of it on the downhill.
A successful day on stage 10 for the Movistar team. They managed to have Alejandro Valverde, Nairo Quintana in the front group, and that has moved them into the lead of the team's classification. It was a tough day for them, though, because they had Mikel Landa, who was in the front group, and I didn't pick it up at the time when we were calling. It was an aerial shot that zoomed in that I saw on replay online only later on, and you could see that he was bumped off the side of the road accidentally by Warren Barguil whilst in the front group.
And this is the town just above where our KOM point is, Castelnau de Montmiral.
Renowned for its town hall square, Place de la Marie, and Place de la Rose, the Rose Square. It was also a meeting place for pilgrims leaving for Rome or going the other direction in the way of St. James. It was really unfortunate for Movistar and Mikel Landa on stage 10. He was in the group. He'd made the split. And then Warren Barguil was sitting behind the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe. His front wheel touched the back wheel of Alaphilippe. As a result of that, 1 foot came out for Warren Barguil. Just managed to maintain his balance by a hip and shoulder on Mikel Landa. And the next thing that Mikel Landa knew, he was sitting on the ground between a couple of spectators looking down, asking the question, "Are you okay?"
Really unfortunate for Landa.
And the gap has gone out to over 3 minutes. So we thought it would slow down for the peloton on this climb. It's slowed down even more.
Slowed down for the peloton, and I got the impression the pace was being picked up through to the line of the KOM. The pace was picked up by Perez, and as he came over the top, it was looking like he was maintaining that intensity on the way out of the village. That maybe they're thinking, this is a moment, the peloton's sitting up a bit, we can gain a bit of time on the climb, and now we'll just punch it a bit more and see if we can build ourselves a decent gap that we maybe just a slight chance of defending. And to have any hope at all at the moment, I think they'd need to have about 7 minutes. Richie Porte there on the left-hand side of the picture from Trek Segafredo. One of the losers amongst the GC contenders 2 days ago. But he's still in good spirits and philosophical about it all, and he's just going to keep on trying, really waiting for the race to hit the mountains. And he's always been a good performer in the time trial, so he'll be looking for a good day out on the roads around Poole.
If anything, you would have hoped that the time trial was longer. It's only 27.2 kilometres, but it is a chance for Richie Porte to A, get some time back, B, get some confidence back. A lot of that will depend, though, on what happens tomorrow. Stage 10 was a super tough day for Trek Segafredo. Richie Porte lost 1 minute and 40 seconds on his main rivals, including the defending champion, Geraint Thomas. They lost the lead in the team's classification, and they lost the white jersey with Giulio Ciccone, who was in the third group on the road, so it was a super tough day. Maxime Montfort still on the front for Soudal Lotto. Now they get back on with the business of closing down the gap to the breakaway group of 4.
Well, just in the last 4 or 5 kilometres, the breakaway has taken about 1 minute 10 off the peloton. And now Montfort, Tony Martin, Casper Asgreen will be well aware of what's happening up the front, how the time gap grew, and they'll just start to up the tempo just slightly, still feeling like they're in control, guiding their sprinters in towards Toulouse for the expected bunch sprint finish.
Feeling like they're in control because they are in control.
And we've seen them riding with a tailwind over the last 25 kilometres or so. They're just about to turn a little bit more to the right, head south. The wind will be coming in directly from the side. It's a westerly at the moment as they ride to the south, but it's only blowing at 16 kilometres an hour in Dollach, which is the next bigger village they're about to pass through. So no real danger of a split or anything like that. Won't stop teams getting organised together and just coming further up towards the front, just making sure, because they're all a bit antsy after a couple of days ago, even if the wind is only at 16 kilometres an hour.
And that is exactly what is happening. You could see the shuffling on the right-hand side of the screen. They're through the forest, they're over the hill. All of the Koenig Quickstep are at the fronts, and they're to a slightly more exposed part of the course. Everyone's a bit edgy after the big time losses on stage 10. Total Direct Energy, they have one rider in the breakaway. It's Lilian Calmejin today, the hometown hero. Another rider from that team that was in a break, it was on Bastille Day, and that's Roman Siccar. We caught up with Roma before today's stage got started. Here he is.
I think we can expect a really fast stage today, especially just after the rest day. Usually once everyone's recharged their batteries, they're feeling strong and motivated. On paper it's one for the sprinters, but you can't be sure of anything on the tour. And it's not completely flat. I know this region pretty well. It's bumpy, and the final won't be easy at all. You've got to try to be up towards the front. There's always a slim chance that the break will go all the way, even if it's only a small small percentage. We're on the tour and we have an attacking team here at Total Direct Energy, so we have to be up at the front.
Total Direct Energy, they are the only team so far in this year's race without a single rider having a stage result inside the top 10. Their hopes for doing that today, they have one rider in the breakaway, Lilian Calmajan, but their best hope is their Italian sprinter, Nicolo Bonifacio. Of age. Quintana has twice been second in the Tour. He's been third. He's won the Giro d'Italia. He's won the Volta a España. If Jakob Fuglsang is worth €2 million, if he was, how much does that make Nairo Quintana worth?
Same amount, roughly.
He's done a lot more than Jakob Fuglsang.
Yeah, what's he going to do from now on?
Who's going to do more, Quintana or Fuglsang?
That's the €2 million question.
Indeed it is. Coming towards the intermediate sprint, it's Rosetto on the front, followed by Perez, then Calmajan, De Gent, Armé De Gent it is at the rear of the group. And this won't be a friendly roll through, 500 metres to go. And it is Rosetto who is doing the lead out for Perez. They are sprinting for the points. They want the honour of winning this intermediate sprint. They'll be convinced internally. They'll be realists. They'll be figuring we won't make it through to the finish line. So let's sprint. And De Gent is going early, but Perez was ready. Now Perez, he's got a turn of speed. De Gent still in the slipstream. Perez leading. De Gent, has he got the legs to get over the top? He's waited. He waited too long. Perez holds him off. De Gent in second. Calmajan third.
I'm surprised at the turn of speed by Perez. I thought Armé De Gent would have had him covered. The more muscular-looking rider as well, the Belgian. Thought he had a bit more of a sprint in-house than Perez. He started to come. He came out to the side to challenge. It was all too late. And Perez has been a bit greedy. Wins both the climbs and the sprint.
So Perez picking up more prizes. Here's one of those roundabouts. There's been a lot of them. Big talking points across the last few days. Two minutes and 43. Now the gap for the breakaway. The peloton's starting to wind up the speed here because they are battling for points in the race for the green jersey. Fifth place is up for grabs. Fifth place at an intermediate sprint. That is still worth 11 points. They go down to 1 point for 15th in these intermediate sprints. Bora Hansgrohe with plenty of numbers at the front. Where is the green jersey? There he is. He's just poked out of the picture. There underneath the kite. 1 kilometre to the sprint. Still Casper Asgreen on the front from the Koenig Quickstep. Recchesi is there behind the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe. Geraint Thomas is staying towards the front for Ineos on the left-hand side of the road. The red jersey there, Michael Matthews. How much will he spend on this one? No sign of Caleb Ewan really being involved in the intermediate sprint so far, but he is towards the front today. Might just be having a little bit of a tester, perhaps.
Here's Colbrelli on the right side. Viviani behind Murku on the right. Viviani in the blue. Sagan, he's following his own teammates for this one. He looks to be getting himself a little bit boxed in. And Viviani coming from behind now.
And Sagan through in the green. Colbrelli in the red colours. It's Viviani in blue. Colbrelli on the right-hand side of the picture. He has been full gas for the intermediate sprints. It's a more concerted effort from Sagan, but Viviani gets him. That was a much more intense intermediate sprint than what we've seen so far throughout the tour.
And on a day like today, a flat stage, a big likelihood of a bunch finish, where you just saw Viviani just missed clipping the wheel of his teammate Murku. He leaves him, goes back to the other side, and just managed to find the gap inside Colbrelli. It's over the top easily past Sagan and Colbrelli. I'm a bit surprised to see Viviani putting this much in to the intermediate sprint for 5th place. Maybe just a case of post-rest day.
That's what I was thinking.
Get things going again.
Exactly what I was thinking. Remember a couple of days ago at the back of the peloton, it was Matteo Trentin before the intermediate sprint that did a sprint or two of his own, didn't get involved in the intermediate sprint, but was just sharpening the legs. There's Caleb. He's right near the front. He's behind the polka dot jersey of Tim Wellens, but he didn't participate in the sprint.
Well, some riders feel like they need that to switch things back on. Viviani reminding his legs just what's expected of them in the final 200 metres this afternoon, where a man like Caleb Ewan might think, no, I'm fine. I feel good after the rest day. I'll just wait for the real thing. Just spotted Andre Greipel at the front as well on the right-hand side, who celebrated his birthday yesterday. 37.
He'll be a teammate potentially next season with Nairo Quintana. And he could come back to the Tour, not contest the intermediate sprints, and still play a really important role.
This is l'Église Saint-Pierre en Gaillac.
In this region of Gaillac, a lot of the economy was driven by when the monks came through and gave them the privileges to plant vineyards and start to grow wine.
It is one of the most scenic towns in the region.
It's the Abbey of Saint-Michel, which is built on top of the former abbey. The former abbey was built around about the 10th century. That got destroyed, twice devastated by Protestants, and was later rebuilt back in 1570 through to 1620. Major restoration works were also undertaken throughout the 1990s to get it back to its former glory. And it now, in addition to being the former abbey, it houses the Museum of Popular Arts and Traditions for the region, focusing a lot on the production of wine and sacred arts.
There's not many in the world that will have pulled you up on that one, except for Rigoberto Urán and maybe a few family members.
And when I make mistakes, I get more frustrated at myself than anybody else does. This is Casper Asgreen at the front, the blue colours, followed by Montfort, and then it's Tony Martin, the three that we've seen on the front pretty much all day long, from the moment the breakaway group of four went off the front. As soon as the flag came in, as they departed Albi, destination Toulouse. Astana today, they're at the front. Omar Frale protecting Jakob Fuglsang. That's where they needed to be on stage 10. But they conceded 1 minute and 40 seconds. He's not out of it, Jakob Fuglsang. He's still in with a big chance for the podium. It would take a huge performance for him to win the race, but he's still in the battle. Drink time for the King of the Mountains jersey, Tim Wellens. He may well get in the breakaway tomorrow in the battle to defend his lead in the race for the polka dots. He has a 6-point advantage over his teammate and his roommate, Thomas de Gent.
Well, we've seen those flags flying in this light breeze, 18 kilometres an hour, and a little update on the direction. It has swung slightly more west-northwest.
There's a shoot, there's a crash, just heard over Race Radio, there's a crash in the peloton. Just a moment's inattention, it can happen so quickly.
Max Schachmann is one of the riders caught behind it. Tom Scully, number 96 as well.
Plenty of pink down at the bottom. Amongst them is Sebastian Langevel, the riders from EF for Education First. Bettiol is there. That's Nicky Terpstra in the blue colours. That is the Dutchman, Nicky Terpstra.
Ties Benoot also caught up in this fall. Ciccone is the man from Trek Segafredo.
Case Bowl, one of the lead-out men from Sunweb, a lead-out rider for Michael Matthews. And Nairo Quintana. Nairo Quintana, the yellow helmet, the blue colours from Movistar. Trek Segafredo also involved in that fall. Here comes Nairo Quintana. 8th position overall, 2 minutes and 4 seconds down. Movistar, they have to send the entire team back. And this is Trek Segafredo.
It's Richie.
It looks like Richie Ports. Ciccone is there for Trek Segafredo. He's the rider that's about to get on his bike. We cross our fingers and hope for Nicky Terpstra. Collarbone. Doesn't look great.
Yeah, feeling at the shoulder blade, the collarbone. He's taken the brunt of the fall onto his shoulder, and they are feeling that scapula on Nicky Terpstra. He's had a horror season.
That's the word. That is the word. It has been a horror season for Nicky Terpstra.
A very nasty concussion sustained at the Tour of Flanders when he fell there, and even before the finale had started.
That was objective number 1. This was objective number 2. Going through the hoarding, indicating Movistar, the leaders of the team's classification. Don't expect to see yellow helmets, blue jerseys at the front of the peloton. They need to go back and collect their leader, the Colombian climber, Nairo Quintana.
We should see a safe return of Quintana. There is one of the teammates waiting.
Verona. This is Carlos Verona. He's already had a fall. That was a few days ago. It's not panic stations, but there is a sense of urgency. They've got the team cars to work with. They should be able to return. Here he comes, leading the charge. This is Andre Amador. There is Richie Porte. He is 4th in line, the 3rd of the riders from Trek Segafredo. So Trek Segafredo and Movistar will work in unison.
This will be a safe return for those riders. After a crash, it's also not the moment for anyone to go to the front of the peloton and try and increase the pace and take advantage of a situation like this. Some may say, no, that's racing, that's part of it. But they won't.
Jens Kerkeleer is here from Soudal Lotto. When Rich is, he just gets a little nudge on the back. That was courtesy of Kundecourt. When Richie crashed last year, Kerkeleer was with him.
Richie Porte just looks like he's having some bike trouble. I could just sense a skipping of gears. He's looking down at the bike quite often. So maybe someone's run into his bike, possibly bent the derailleur hanger, which prevents the chain from running smoothly.
Terpstra still on the ground. Well, this doesn't do it justice, this graphic, because the gap between the Quintana group and the peloton is 450 metres.
But they could see them, and they were coming back rapidly. So I'm not worried about their chances of coming back, and I think you'll see them. If we could just look through that corner, you would have seen them approaching the back of the peloton. Now, it looks like it's a 23-second gap, but that's front of the peloton. So that peloton is also 15 or 16 seconds long. They're just off the back of it, and they are within the convoy.
They get back, but not ideal before heading into the Pyrenees. No crash is ever ideal. Here they are. This is the group doing the chasing, and the cars coming past is really important in terms of something for them to work with. This is Michael Woods once again at the back. Closing down quickly. The ticket that you see there is the gap closing down to the back of the peloton, 200 metres.
And you can just see the difference in intensity as well between the front of the peloton and that chasing group.
Looks like it's switched off at the front.
Well, they're going on one of those little uphills. It's deceiving in this part of the course because you dip down in these little valleys and back up, and this looks nasty.
This is Nizzolo. This is the sprinter. This is Giacomo Nizzolo from Dimension Data. That is an awful way to head into the mountains. It will be a restless night's sleep. They return, Quintana and Porte. They are back in contact with the peloton. It's now time for those teams to assess the damage.
Giacomo Nizzolo, he was Dimension Data's hope for a high finish, a top 10 on this sprint stage today. So I very much doubt if he'll be amongst it at all. He looked like he'd taken off quite a lot of bark in that fall, and he'll be very sore and sorry.
This is Michael Woods.
Let's hope for Nizzolo it's only superficial. It would be quite amazing to see him make a return to the front of the peloton and be amongst it in the sprint.
No way.
But these cyclists are tough. Don't underestimate.
He is not going to finish in the top 10 on today's stage. I know he is super tough and he is a world-class cyclist, but he is not making it into the top 10 today after that fall.
I'm not going to put money on him finishing the top 10 either, but I won't count anybody out because you just don't know what the damage is. Sometimes it looks worse than it is. It's definitely not good.
Let's hope it looks worse than it is.
Yeah.
Let's really hope that is the case for Nizzolo. And of all the sprinters, he's one of the sprinters that gets accused of being too nice. Not often an accusation that's labelled as a sprinter. So we really do hope that Giacomo Nizzolo is okay. Down to a minute now for the breakaway group.
The real chase has now gone out of the peloton, so that chasing done by the teams of the sprinters favoured to win today, that's done. It's not closed yet. Now there's just teams at the front sitting there, positioned.
Attack, and it comes from De Gent. The reaction then comes very quickly by Calmajan. And Perez, surprisingly, 155 is the first to surrender.
Hand to the leg. Was that maybe a cramp? The man who won both KOMs and the intermediate sprint, he's gone, leaving 3 out the front. Now behind, there were teams in position, but nobody willing to continue the chase, do the work on the front. And the gap with this attack is growing. And Aimé De Gent, he's got too much horsepower. He's ridden them out of the wheel.
And Rosetto is shaking head, frustrated. He thinks that the motorbikes in front of De Gent have given the Belgian an advantage.
I think what gave him the advantage was just being stronger at this end of the bike race.
Here he is, Aimé De Gent. No relation to Thomas, but he has got a good engine.
Passage left on this roundabout coming up.
And he'll be able to take it cleanly. Nobody to negotiate for him. He just needs to get cleanly through that corner. A check across the shoulder. This is Anthony Perez. A long adventure in the breakaway. The first time we've seen him off the front this year.
It's going to be a big squeeze in the peloton to take the shorter side. If you're forced to take the right, it is a much longer way round. You'll lose 40 or 50 positions minimum.
The 10-kilometre arch on his own again, and this is quick.
He's about to hit a nice downhill section as well through the next roundabout. Keep to the left. Then the road drops away. It's really steep for a few hundred metres as well.
There's been a fall off on the right-hand side. You saw a spectator move over. And then one of the riders from Soudal Lotto has gone down.
Jasper de Boost.
One of the lead-out riders for Caleb Ewan. Jasper de Boost. There it is on the left. And just behind, Caleb Ewan has come to a grinding halt. Caleb Ewan clips back in. He's still in the peloton. The spectator did not get in the way. The spectator jumped off that little bit of grass as the fall was happening.
De Boost, he's struggling. He got an elbow. It came from more towards the middle of the peloton. It was from Burhan.
No, it was from the rider from CCC, and then
the one to the right of him first.
Yeah, correct. So for Caleb Ewan, he's lost one of his lead-out men. He's lost his position. He's got 10 kilometres to correct it.
He's got a massive amount of work to do because it's hard to move up. Narrow passages, fast downhill, tricky little negotiations of roundabouts as well. And then that 1.2 kilometre uphill onto the outskirts of the centre of Toulouse. He's got his work cut out.
And after all his near misses, what does that do to him psychologically?
He's got to not drop his bundle now. He's got to have this give him some fight.
Get angry.
He's got to be angry about what's just happened. Use it.
There's a bunch of... Michael Woods is in this group. Wout Poels is in that group.
This is not strung out because of crosswind. This is strung out because of those passages through the roundabouts where it narrows, it squeezes in, and it just serves to lengthen the peloton. And some riders just can't hang on anymore.
Lucas Postelberger was also in that group, one of the lead-out riders for Peter Sagan. Not that he really needs any.
This was that very narrow passage, 8 kilometres to go. So a team who's organised, De Koenig Quickstep, when are they not? They're in control at the front, and Caleb Ewan has so much work to do to get himself back in front.
He needs Roger Kluger to come back and collect him, give him some... At the rear of the group, he's not able to do it. 39 seconds now, the gap for Aimé De Gent. Strong.
He has nearly doubled the gap that he had when he took off and left the rest of the group behind, racing in towards Toulouse, famous for its aeronautics. Le Cité d'Espace, the Airbus factory here as well in Toulouse, out at Blagnac.
This was opened up in June of 1997.
Aimé De Gent, 36 seconds still with 7.5 kilometres still, under 7.5 to go. The other breakaways reaching the hand out. Good job. Fist bump. It's all over. One man left to catch.
Calmajan in blue, a confidence booster today. Rosetto, his third breakaway. De Gent still defying the chasers. 33 seconds, 7 kilometres. The first time here, 1903. That was in the first ever edition of the race. It was the second stage. There were only 6 stages that year. Stage 2, 450 kilometres.
6 stages, a 3,000 kilometre tour. De Gent now, 6.5k to go. Must stay left here. It's much longer around on the right-hand side. Tight, squeeze it in. The more technical, the better.
And these have gone on the wrong side. They've cost themselves significant ground.
In my notes, right side at 6.5 kilometres to go, or 7 for that roundabout where the peloton is. Left side on the next one.
De Koning Quickstep, not surprisingly, they got it right.
De Gent, he turns right, stays on this big road now, right through until 2.5 kilometres to go. No more corners on this section, the wind into the face, and he's not far from hitting the bottom of that hill that I've been talking about on the way into town.
Wide open road, headwind, it's the kryptonite for a soul breakaway. De Koning Quickstep, they up the tempo. The yellow jersey, still looking comfortable, Juliana Alaphilippe.
Peter Sagan riding in fourth wheel right up the front behind De Koning Quickstep. Our sole leader, well, he's lost almost a third of his lead, but he's getting ever closer to the finish.
The peloton, though, they're strung out. This will be very difficult for Caleb Ewan to return to the front of the race.
It's been so narrow, and with all those roundabouts, it's going to be almost impossible to pass people and get back in position. And the only place left to do it is on a wide open road, that long uphill. It is really going to burn the legs. He's going to have to be on a great day.
He needs Roger Kluge right now to go back and collect him. This is De Gent.
He'll have to do everything at his disposal to get himself back up at the front. They're not far away from hitting those steeper gradients and well organised behind De Koning Quickstep, the yellow and black colours of Jumbo-Visma for Dylan Groenewegen.
Lots of riders at the back now being distanced. The peloton continues to splinter. None of the contenders for the stage, none of the big favourites for the overall classification. You can see the yellow and black colours being led by Wout van Aert.
I spot Alexander Kristoff through the middle. He'll like this sort of approach, something that takes a little bit of the edge off the sprinters on the run into town. And I was looking for Caleb Ewan and couldn't find him.
Into the headwind. De Gent, 5 kilometres, 23 seconds.
De Gent is now on the section where it kicks up a little bit steeper. Another 700 metres for him at 4%. It's getting harder and harder. The peloton also under 5 kilometres to go and now under 20 seconds. Jumbo-Visma now at the front.
And there's the yellow helmet, the Olympic champion. The orange colours, Greg Van Avermaet moving forward.
Andre Greipel being brought forward by Warren Barguil. Could this be his best attempt in this Tour de France in the bunch sprints?
He spoke about it before the stage started, Andre Greipel. I don't have a team for the lead out. I just need somebody to take me to the front inside the final 5 kilometres. Great job, Warren Barguil.
Well, De Gent, he is going to be gobbled up. Just 10 seconds left, and they're coming at him doing 2 to his 1. He knows it. Valiant effort by the Belgian Great Ride. Will it result in the Prix de Combativité and a red number? Only time will tell.
It should.
Well done, De Gent.
It should be a red number for De Gent. The red on the left of Sunweb. Trying to position. Is it Case Ball or is it Michael Matthews? Jumbo-Visma riding on an bed of confidence.
Darryl Impey coming round on the right side of the road. He'll be trying to bring Matteo Trent in as well. Still no sign of Caleb Ewan.
Wout van Aert setting the tempo as he did into Chalon-sur-Saône when it was Groenewegen who collected the victory.
It is 100% for Dylan Groenewegen. Wout van Aert, he's got his stage win. Unexpected, he said himself, but he's got it. He's at the service of the team again, and when he did this last time, Groenewegen finished it off.
Roach, his job done. He's going out the back door. Nitzelo won't be sprinting for Dimension Data, but I saw the green helmet at the front of Edvald Bosenhagen.
Daniel Oss, he's up there. He's keeping Peter Sagan out of the wind. Through 4 kilometres to go. Now it's downhill and then flat to the finish. It gets faster and faster on this downhill. Slightly at first, then dips down into the narrow streets of Toulouse, and here comes Sunweb.
I've seen Roger Kluge towards the front for Soudal Lotto. Does he have Caleb Ewan in tow? Yes, he does.
That is Ewan on the right, across the zebra crossing there, just now to the right of the yellow jerseys. Back in position. Magnificent effort to get back up. What's he got left for the sprint?
He's got 3.5 kilometres before the finish line. He needs to somehow just compose himself and start all over again. There he is, Caleb. Well done, Roger Kluge.
You need to keep pushing forward now. The road dips away even more, coming towards the 3 kilometre mark. You've got to keep improving position or you'll get swamped from behind.
He looks like he's basing his sprint on Dylan Groenewegen.
He's going to go up and fight for that wheel. The other side of the road was De Koning Quickstep. Julian Alaphilippe brings them in position, swings away to find some safety. Ewan tracking Groenewegen. A lot of yellow and black.
And Daniel Oss is there supporting the green jersey of Peter Sagan. Sonny Colbrelli the long way around in the red colours of Bahrain Merida.
They're now onto the flat. They're in the city streets of Toulouse. The road will start to swing around to the right, which will bring them to the last real corner of this stage.
And look who's still on the fronts. Wout van Aert.
Ewan slots in behind Groenewegen. He's the third rider in yellow. Ewan right on his wheel. Sagan to his right-hand side in green.
And Katusha now come to the front. This is Alex Dowsett who leads them through the corner. Jens de Busche, just maybe.
Lining up well now for Caleb Ewan at the moment, riding the train of Jumbo-Visma. Big turn on the front for Katusha. So de Busche is in position. He is behind Ewan and Sagan, the Katusha rider. Daniel Oss will be the next to take over. And then it's the yellow and black train. 4-stage win so far, going for number 5. Caleb Ewan, he's been so close in this tour. Can it be today?
And on the right-hand side in the red colours, Maciej Mohoric, the left as we look at it, the gold in the helmet. He's positioning Sonny Colbrelli, and the fight is on for the wheel of Peter Sagan.
Caleb Ewan has got himself smoothly into the wheel of Groenewegen. Where is De Koning? They're coming on the left. Richese has Viviani with him. Work to do, but a wide open road, plenty of room to move. Murku comes through. Quickstep are aiming to take over through the 1.5 kilometres to go.
And basing his sprint on the blue of Viviani is Jasper Stuyven of Trek Segafredo.
Murku comes through and he moves Janssen off the wheel. He got shelter. Viviani, he's behind Richese, who is bashing away at Caleb Ewan.
And Michael Matthews is doing the lead out for Case Bowl.
So it's true to his word, like he said earlier. They come under the kilometre to go. Here is the overhead. Groenewegen, the big jump when he came out of the wheel of Turnison. Ewan, he swings across. He leaves the gap track style. Viviani, he's also trying to lay off. Now it comes. The acceleration from the Australian. He draws up alongside. This is all on fight and all on heart. And he's there. Caleb Ewan, debut stage win in the Tour de France.
Sorry, NBC. Leave room for the...
It's a reverse of stage 7. It's the narrowest of margins, but it's gone Caleb Ewan's way this time. He had so much go wrong, and he made everything right.
The difference? Wanting it. So much desire.
Look at the joy, the relief. You can see the adrenaline.
He had so much left to do. He was behind Jasper de Boos to win off the road. At around 10 kilometres to go, Ewan stopped, clipped out, and for a moment, it was like he dropped his bundle. He didn't go immediately. He has fought so hard to come back from a lost position. Brilliant.
He picked his bundle up quickly. Michael Matthews congratulates him.
They're great mates. They're training partners. That is genuine delight from his mate.
No interview on the light. Okay, watch out.
Starts to sink in.
As he got confirmation, it wasn't a monkey that fell off his back. It was a family of gorillas.
Or the descendants of Andre Greipel, as that's the man he's replaced at Soudal Lotto. There was a lot of pressure. They were big shoes to fill.
They were. He's been battling so hard. He's been so consistent. Twice third, twice second. This was all that was missing off his palmarès.
He's looking for a teammate here.
Another teammate behind.
Jens Kerkelaer. They were teammates together at Mitchelton Scott as well.
The Belgian team, they pick up their second stage victory. Thomas de Gent in Saint-Etienne, and now Caleb Ewan in Toulouse.
Front of the peloton, as we see at the back of the peloton, number 31, Romain Bardet, being supported back into the group by number 36, that is Alexis Goujard. 33 is the former under-23 world champion, that is Benoit Cosnefroy. And Bardet is leading at the moment because he wants the position directly behind those team cars where there is a bigger windbreak. He doesn't look at ease. He hasn't looked at ease at all throughout this year's race, Romain Bardet.
He almost never looks at ease, even when he's going well. He's a bit all over the bike. He's a bit ragged. And that partly is, I think, behind his lack of ability in the time trial. He's not very solid on the bike. I actually wonder, compared to some of the riders we talk about and say, look how still and how solid and controlled they are on the bike, Romain Bardet is really opposite. I wonder if he does much of that core training, the core strength exercises, which is what really keeps you so stable on the bike and makes you more powerful. I liken it to having a big engine in a car, but only secured by one engine mount if you don't do the core exercises.
I'm sure that he does, because he is really meticulous in his preparation. But does he do enough is the question.
And some guys just have their individual style, and it's
Chris Froome is effective,
harder, impossible to achieve. Chris Froome also is not picture perfect on the bike. He's not attractive to look at style-wise on the bike, but it is effective.
But I'm sure he does everything right. You don't get the results Chris Froome has had, a 7-time winner of Grand Tours, without doing everything right on and off the bike.
Yeah, it's not a beauty competition.
No. It's a competition to try and win. Well, it's 2:15 here local time, so let's now turn our attention to our daily awards, starting with the hashtag Tour Media Medal. And as Robbie, as you reminded us yesterday, for those that haven't been following and just catching up with the tour, each day we try and give votes 3, 2 and 1 for the quotes from riders in particular, sometimes team management, that catch our attention and create a talking point. At the moment, at the top of the table, is Geraint Thomas and George Bennett on 8 points, Alex Dowsett and Dylan Groenewegen in second position on 5. And there's a bunch of riders lining up below them. Today, Robbie, before we get into the votes, we've got an honourable mention for the first time ever from Nairo Quintana. In his 10 years in the professional peloton, he's barely said anything to really catch our attention.
Sometimes you say about someone, oh, he's a man of few words. With Nairo, you wouldn't be far off by saying he's a man of no words.
Yes, he's a man of no words at all. This breakaway group is just splitting a little bit under the pressure at the front. Lots of riders going back to the team cars, yet they're only a matter of 6 kilometres away from the feed zone. So Nairo Quintana, getting to the finish line yesterday after his crash, he said to the journalists, don't make too big a deal of it. They'll only get worried back home.
So just thinking about the family, the friends, the fans back in Colombia, they don't want a big story made of his crash because they'll just worry.
I really quite like that. This is Romain Bardet. He's twice been on the podium. He's been second, he's been third, he's got a few teammates with him. It's really quick at this point.
Now, we've spoken in the past of someone who speaks about themselves in the third person in glowing terms. We call them the third person self-congratulator. The 1 point is not far off that. And he's also, I've got to hand to him, he's not far off the mark either. It's being honest. I don't think he's overstating it, but it's really approaching that third-person self-congratulator status. But let's have it.
It's right up there. So if those of you that listen to Off the Bench in Melbourne on SEN, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. George Bennett, the Kiwi from Jumbo-Visma. It's a luxury position for a team to have a guy like me here as a helper. Little pat in the back for George Bennett from George Bennett. 1 vote.
He's still got to prove that point because he's here to help in the mountains for Steven Kruijswijk. George, he was recorded in an interview saying yesterday, the day before, yeah, I am here to help. I'm going to get my own chance in the Tour of Spain in September, which I'm really looking forward to. But here I am, a helper, and they're lucky to have me.
So George Bennett now moves to the lead. He's on 9 points ahead of Geraint Thomas, who's on 8. 2 votes today, 2 points. Julian Alaphilippe, the race leader, and this moves him up to 4th place. I can't wait for the Pyrenees. I don't have a plan. Anything can happen. I've been talking about it so much, I'm starting to lose my voice. But I promise you, I haven't been out clubbing.
He's always got a quip, Julian Alaphilippe.
It also tells us about his reputation.
He's a man who loves a good time, and I'm sure he'll celebrate this Tour de France and his achievements in it with all his heart. everything he's got left by the time he gets to Paris.
He is pretty good after dark by all reports, Julian Alaphilippe, as Romain Bardet, number 31, returns to the rear end of the peloton. But 3 votes today goes to the rider in the breakaway yesterday, Stefan Rossetto, who was really frustrated with his breakaway companion, Armé de Ghent. And he said after the stage, and it was a long interview with Rossetto, for a breakaway to work, everyone has to pull their weight. Lillian was honest, Anthony was honest, but the Belgian guy, forget it. At one point he said, now we go all out. And he just carried on riding like before. And then he screwed us in the end to grab the red bib. Guys like that, they do my head in. You can't go all the way with a guy like that in the breakaway. You have to be on the same wavelength, right as a team. It really pees me off. So 3 votes for Stefan Rossetto for saying exactly what he thought about Armé de Ghent.
He said what he thought, and I don't really agree with him.
With the red number, Armé de Ghent. And another one of the riders from the breakaway, Lilian Calmejean, he didn't really agree with Rossetto either, but he felt like he had to say, I can't understand what you're saying, but it's part of racing.
That is racing, and at the end of the day, Armé de Ghent was the man who just had the most left in the tank. He was strong enough to make the attack, and they got right back to a metre or so behind his wheel and then couldn't hang on. He just rode them out of the wheel. Now, Rossetto saying that he did less throughout the day.
So what?
Everyone's got their own opinion.
Yeah. I thought it was entertaining, though. So 1 for George Bennett for his little slap on the back for himself. 2 for Julien Alaphilippe, just letting everybody know that he hasn't been out clubbing, well aware of his reputation. And 3 for Stefan Rossetto for trying to give it both barrels to Armé de Ghent, who actually has the last laugh because he did go onto the podium and collect the red number. 4 minutes and 35 seconds now the advantage for the breakaway. They have upped the ante. They're approaching the feed zone, then into Bagnères de Luchon for the intermediate sprint, then on to the climb of the Col de Peyrasourde. Good to see Tony Galopin in the breakaway today. He crashed at the French National Championships a week before the start of the Tour de France. This is an attack off the front, leading into Bagnères de Luchon. Not a straightforward sprint. Bora Hansgrohe doing the chasing, protecting the green jersey of Peter Sagan. A good opportunity for Peter Sagan to collect maximum points. 20 points at the intermediate sprint. 1 kilometre to go to Bagnères de Luchon.
And the attacks are on, trying to get the green jersey points. This is now the lead out. That's Daniel Oss for Peter Sagan, Colbrelli in his wheel, and it's Alexander Kristoff.
Sturven in 4th position. The rider that attacked was Roger Kluge. It's a long lead out, this for Daniel Oss. He had to chase Roger Kluge. That was from the 1,300 metre mark, underneath the kite. Sagan waits patiently. Colbrelli has been all in for these intermediate sprints, 56 kilometres per hour.
I'm picking Alexander Kristoff, the man in 4th position in white, to go long. All these riders will consider their day done once they get through this point, pretty much. Sagan lays off, gives himself a gap to run to the wheel of Daniel Oss, closely looking at the others, couple hundred metres to go, up out of the seat, goes for it.
And this is an all-in sprint by Peter Sagan, vastly different to any of the other intermediate sprints. Colbrelli doesn't have the legs, nor Kristoff, nor Stuyven. Totally different to any intermediate sprint we've seen so far for Peter Sagan. That one wasn't for placings. That one was for the win.
That was for the full points, and that gives us an indication of what his thoughts are for the rest of the stage. This will do me. That was my finish line for today. Alexander Kristoff, he just found the pace too high to go for a long one, up to the 60k an hour mark, and Peter Sagan just rode it perfectly. Shades of Caleb Ewan yesterday, laying off the wheel, sprinting into the slipstream, getting the big slingshot, and then just outpowering Colbrelli all the way to the line.
A little bit of cold trickle, Days of Thunder. This is Sonny Colbrelli from Bahrain Merida as they head into the thermal town of Bagnères de Luchon. Even back in the Roman times here, they made the most of the thermals, and then since around about the mid-1700s, it's played a huge part of attracting tourists to the town. It is a beautiful little city. We've had a few stopovers, including the rest aid last year, and Robbie, you made the mistake. you missed out on a really good game of golf.
I did.
I'll be the first to confess, I'm terrible at golf, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I chose to ride last year. This time, when we get the opportunity, I'm going to go and have a swing. I'm feeling really rusty, which is not so different to my normal game. And it looks like the next opportunity for us is up on the Tourmalet at La Mongie.
There's a golf course.
Golf at altitude.
At 2,000 metres.
Yes.
That might enable me to hit the ball further.
Further sideways. That's what it'll do for me. Here we are at the back of the peloton. Number 84, Dylan Groenewegen.
And that's the important number, 1.4 kilometres to the start of the Col de Peyresourde.
And still
Christophe and Sagan, the first riders to hit the base of the climb. 13.2 kilometres with an average gradient of 7%. This is Calmajan now, who's bridged across to Sonny Colbrelli. So he's done more than find his confidence yesterday by going into the breakaway. He's found maybe not his legs of old, but he's getting close to them.
They're on that little section on the lowest slopes of the Peyresourde where you can just build a little bit of momentum. Now on the official start of the climb, 13 kilometres to the summit.
Lars back at the rear. Number 2, oh no, he's 202 a little bit further forward. 203 is Steve Cummings. Janssen, the Norwegian national champion. Colbrelli and Calmajan, they're moving well on the lower slopes. This is Edvald Bosenhagen. This is the back of, not the peloton, this is the back of the main breakaway group. It's so big, a couple of times I've looked at it and I thought, is this the peloton or the break?
It's 25% of the peloton that took off this morning.
40 riders in the breakaway. Sunweb now doing the chasing, and the man they're working for is Michael Matthews.
Or Nico Roche.
Nico Roche.
Both.
Nicholas Roche has the better track record in the mountains, but Michael Matthews, I think he fancies himself today.
It's trying to get Matthews there, but they've got to give Nico Roche the freedom to follow the attacks that are going to come inevitably. They're going to be attacks by the likes of Dylan Teuns. For example, Simon Yates, he's not going to hang around to take Michael Matthews with an easy ride over the climbs to the finish. So there'll be attacks. Roche has got to follow them. And then, tactically, he could just stay behind and say, no, I'm riding for Michael Matthews, so I'm not going to contribute, i.e. give me a free ride through to the finish.
Max Richesi still at the front in the white colours, the Argentinian national champion. De Koenig Quickstep has shown the signs of a team that are hoping that the men in red and black Ineos now come to the front and take control.
Well, we're waving goodbye to the fast men of De Koenig Quickstep, the lead-out train. And now it's going to be Casper Asgreen who comes to the front. I sit there, make sure everyone's comfortable, fed, hydrated, and in a position at the front for the descent after the climb. They'll be reluctant to do any pacemaking.
In terms of that breakaway, Greg Van Avermaet is the best placed overall at 14 minutes and 20 to take 30 minutes today and move into the yellow jersey by 15. I'm confident that he would still be beaten for yellow in Paris.
He'd still be out of the yellow jersey before we leave the Pyrenees.
Yeah. So there's no major threat in that group. Simon Yates is in the breakaway for Mitchelton Scott, and he was a winner last year at the Volta a España. So you would normally think, yeah, he could be a threat. But he's lost so much time already, he's more than 1 hour behind. Colbrelli is now being distanced by Lilian Calmajan. So on French television, Thomas Vauclair, he went to the Bahrain Merida team car to ask what has happened with Rowan Dennis. And the Bahrain Merida team car said, we're not exactly sure. He stopped for a nature break. And then he's out of the race. So perhaps some of the gastro that's gone through the rest of the peloton might have struck Rowan Dennis down.
From those indicators, you think that must have happened. And it hits you so fast. And you get violently ill when it does hit you. Much like a sprinter hitting a Category 1 climb, gastroenteritis stops you in your tracks.
Such as Dylan Groenewegen and Alexander Kristoff being dropped from this group.
So we'll wait on confirmation from the team and from the team doctor. A huge blow for the team, a massive blow for Rowan Dennis, who was favourite to win the time trial tomorrow. And, of course, for all Australian cycling fans tuning in, hoping to witness another Aussie stage win after that of Caleb Ewan yesterday, who had their hopes pinned on Rowan Dennis.
We've sung the praises of the Argentinian national champion in white, Max Ricchesi, on virtually every flat sprinter stage. We sing them as well today on a day in the Pyrenees. He has done an enormous amount of work on the front. He has been at the front of the peloton for 100 kilometres.
And now that he's gone from the front of the peloton, that's less good news for the breakaway. And I'm guessing it'll be Casper Asgreen who'll be riding on the front. He was there just behind Ricchesi. I saw him coming up to the front as we hit the foot of this climb.
That's what I want to see in this year's tour. If that happens, the 106th edition of the race has been a roaring success.
Well, the cow farmer from Michelbeke in Brakel in Belgium is very attached to those beasts.
This is Calmajan from Total Direct Energy.
Up every morning, 4 a.m. for milking before he gets out on the road.
This is Tom Scully, has spent the day in the breakaway, working in support of his two teammates in that move, Simon Clark and Alberto Bettiol. You know this climb. Take us up it from the peloton, tête de course with Lilian Calmajan, and then the top of the climb. And I'm interested in the descent.
The descent is actually really quite nice, fairly straightforward. It is very fast, but nice smooth roads. On the way up, the midsection of the climb is a little bit bumpier, very open. You can, on a clear day, see all the way to the top from quite low down in the valley already. If you're a fast man struggling and hoping to survive, you don't want to be looking up and seeing the top of the climb. You just got to keep plugging away. But for the pure climbers, this being a Category 1 climb, for those guys, it's not too difficult, especially at this pace. They find this probably even less than a training ride. They would train harder than this when they're out on a training camp in the mountains, so this really not troubling any of the decent climbers in the peloton.
Lilian Calmajan now out to 43-second advantage in front of his former breakaway companions, which includes Tim Wellens in the polka dot jersey, leader of the King of the Mountains classification. Peter Sagan is already 1:24 behind, but Peter Sagan is not paying any attention to the front of the race, nor the back of the race. He's just riding to his own effort to try and measure how much he exerts before then getting through the finish line. Then he has tomorrow an individual time trial, which won't be difficult for Peter Sagan, and then we'll see him hunting stage victories once again.
Calmajan and Colbrelli, they have now doubled their gap over the chasing group. 43 seconds they have on the rest of the breakaway. And another group of dropped riders with Peter Sagan, a minute and a half behind our leader, Lilian Calmajan. So Colbrelli is gone, in fact. Calmajan is now on his own. And would he be ruining the fact that he was in the breakaway yesterday? He'd have to be.
In some respects, yes, but it has given him a fresh air of confidence.
Maybe so, but it's cost him a whole lot of energy. Now he's in a position where it's a real chance of winning the stage. Yesterday was unrealistic. They were never going to hold off the sprinters' teams. So it was
futile.
Absolutely futile. I was looking for the right word. I was going to say a waste of time. I thought that was a bit harsh. Futile. Same thing, more eloquent.
Jesper Sturven still in the breakaway from Trek Segafredo. The Astana rider at the back, that was Bilbao. 1 kilometre to the top for the chasing group behind Lilian Calmajan. No sign of movement from Tim Wellens. I suspect Wellens, he's in second position. He's got his teammate just in front of him, Tish Benoot. Second place at the top of this climb would be fine. The big objective, surely, for Benoot and Wellens has to be the stage win.
Yeah, well, Wellens' real objective, his first and foremost objective, is get as many points as possible. So I guess just seeing if they can, without too much effort, of course it's going to cost some, but without too much, peg back Calmajan, get maximum points, then start thinking about the stage win.
If you were the sports director at Soudal Lotto, what would you make the priority? KOM points or the stage victory?
At the moment, I would say, Tish, just increase the tempo just a little bit on a climb like this. It's not like they're really slipstreaming off him, so everybody has to increase their own tempo. Might even offload a couple that were thinking, I'm going to get over all of this and contest the stage win. But it's not going to hurt Tish Benoit more than anybody else in the group, really. The only one possibly is Tim Wellens if he decides to jump out of the group to then just try and nip Kalmajan before they get to the KOM.
And from 30 seconds, it's quickly gone down to 19 seconds. So Tish Benoit has upped the tempo. And it's stringing this group out. Matteo Trentin is still there. The gold helmet for Greg van Avermaet.
He's still there. So is Rui Costa, Oliver Narsson, Simon Yates in the yellow helmet. Michael Matthews behind him.
And it's Dylan Toynes in the red colours of Bahrain Merida. Number 15, that's Gregor Mühlberger, Austrian climber from Bora Hansgrohe. It's down to 15 seconds. Wellens might jump out of the group to try and poach the maximum points. 10 points at the top of this climb for the polka dot jersey.
And they look like they're on that final straight stretch now towards the top. There's the bidon from the soigneur of his team. Only 150 metres or so to the top of the climb.
Check across the shoulder. He wants to make sure that he at least gets the prize at the top of this climb, Lilian Kalmajan. 12 seconds. It's closing down quickly. He's keeping an eagle eye on what no doubt will be Tim Wellens.
He will see them coming.
He's spending more time looking over his shoulder than looking forward. And here comes Wellens. One last-ditched effort to get him at the top of the climb. Kalmajan now accelerates. Wellens has got the momentum. And Wellens gets there. Extraordinary. Timing is everything. Wellens collects 10 points.
Kalmajan too cheeky. He was looking, saw them coming. He thought, but I'll just be able to hold you off. Wellens had that little bit left, that little bit extra. Serge Pols is the man who went with Wellens in the wheel, and Pols says, flick of the shoulder and the whole side of his body. Simon Clark says, I'll have a piece of that. I'll come along.
He wants to go on with it. Serge Pols, Tim Wellens, good riders to keep company with, and now Kalmajan finds himself in the middle. This is not dissimilar to the move from Chris Froome over the top of the Périgueux a few years ago. The stage victory, Clark is going long range.
It's the intelligent sort of riding I expect from Simon Clark. He's a great tactician. He's realised who else is in the group, the likes of Simon Yates. Simon Clark's not going to wait to the next climb just to try to see if he can hang on to Yates. He's going to anticipate. He's going to make them chase him.
And he knows the quality of Yates well. They were teammates only briefly together at the Mitchelton Scott team. And Simon Clark, if he's got something to his advantage, it is bike IQ. And this is an attack that doesn't waste any energy. He can just see how it evolves. He would like Tim Wellens and Serge Pols, though, to still be with him.
Yeah, he would be feeling that they are guys he can match on the next climb and out sprint at the finish eventually. In Bagnères de Bigorre, Simon Clark getting down, getting aero, and the gap is opening up.
He was in the breakaway into Briod. He got caught out tactically, much to my surprise, when it was Daryl Impey who went on to win the stage. That is a significant hike.
Well, if the riders in the Tour de France think they've done some climbing today, you just got to try and take a peek up through maybe a little hole in the clouds and see who the real climbers are on this day.
Perfect road surface.
Yeah, brand new. That's the great thing about riding on any part of the Tour de France parcours. Wherever you go, you're bound to come on some brand new road. Silky smooth, it's beautiful.
The yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, has been well protected all day by De Koning Quickstep. He now integrates in with Ineos and he slips in front of last year's overall winner.
Little hand signal. I'm in.
And Geraint Thomas will be comfortable to have somebody the bike handling skills of Julian Alaphilippe in front of him on the topic of bike handling skills.
Now, Peter Sagan is well off the back, but it's worth filming him just because you might see something special. They love to follow him on descents when he's at the head of the race. So they thought, well, we've got a spare camera. Let's have a look at him anyway.
Have you seen anybody better going downhill?
I think one of the guys that I can remember that I raced with over the last 25 years, Paolo Savoldelli, the Italian. His nickname was Il Falco, the Falcon, because they're renowned as the fastest animal on earth, because when they dive, it's hundreds of kilometres an hour. He was incredible to watch.
He won the Giro d'Italia through his descending ability almost as much as his climbing. This lake, isn't it stunning? That sits at just under 3,000 metres in altitude.
Savoldelli, not only his descending speed, but his technique. It had me on the edge of my seat watching him sometimes in the Giro d'Italia in the Dolomites. He's up there with anyone I've ever seen.
That is huge praise. This is a good landing or takeoff strip. Race radio telling us that Simon Clarke is out to 30 seconds.
35, in fact, 35 seconds. 35 seconds coming over race radio.
Peter Sagan is almost caught by the peloton. Clarke is back out to more than 6 minutes ahead of the yellow jersey group of Juliana Alaphilippe. This is Lilian Calmejane in the blue colours, who was off the front until the very top of the climb, and he was passed by two riders and finished in third place at the top of the Col de Peyrasourde. Sagan now with his faithful teammate Daniel Oss.
Well, they are really just waiting for the peloton to pick them up. Only 43 seconds in front of it, but just enjoying themselves on the downhill. All that road, no riders around them, letting it flow. Not just the hair of Daniel Oss, but getting their flow on. In fact, they're more likely to ride further away from the peloton on this descent, even though they're happy to drop back.
And then through that short valley road, they'll just cruise along before then being caught by the peloton and dropped on the next climb. This is Michael Murku, who was in the break today. He's now on the front for De Koning Quickstep, for the yellow jersey, looking after Julian Alaphilippe.
And just making sure the pace stays on enough. We know Ineos, their tactic is to get to the front, be in control, and go nice and slow and easy to not put their leaders under any pressure, like Geraint Thomas. De Koning Quickstep don't want that. Keep the pace at just a little higher to keep the break in check.
And he broke away then with Jakob Fuglsang. Still 26 riders in that group chasing Simon Clarke, which indicates there's plenty of horsepower and firepower left back there. They have not gone full throttle by a long stretch of the imagination.
No, they haven't. And the good news for Simon Clarke is that there are 26 in that group, so there's still some passengers, not everybody contributing. And I think that's why we've also seen that gap grow. Simon Clarke riding as hard as he can, pure time trial tempo. Well, in the back, others are doing turns on the front, but nobody really willing to give it even 85% effort on the front of the group.
This is the chasing group at 1 minute and 30 seconds behind Simon Clarke. This is the chase that they have in front of them. It seems so easy on the motorbike. This is a reaction coming though. There's been a counter-attack. It's Matteo Trentin, the European champion from Mitchelton Scott, launched the counter-offensive to try and go across to Clarke.
Either to go across to Clarke or leave the rest of the group, get up the road a little bit, provide a springboard for Simon Yates. Get up there with a gap. Yates go out of the group behind, come across, and for as long as he possibly can, Trentin would then set the pace, because the intensity that Simon Yates can ride at that speed, there's the slipstreaming effect. Just ever so slightly, it's a marginal gain, but it's what they'll be thinking of.
And Simon Yates, at his best, is one of the very best. Last year he won the Tour of Spain. He's not at his absolute best here. He's riding a support role for Adam Yates. But you get the real clear sense that Mitchelton Scott, they don't think is a crucial day in the race for that final yellow jersey. They're aiming for stage victories. The climb starts 9.9 kilometres before the descent then begins down to the finish line.
Average gradient 7.5%, but this first 4 kilometres is the hardest. First kilometre 8.5%, through 9% the next kilometre, 9.5 average the next kilometre after that. A very tough start to this climb.
Trentin, he makes the right-hand turn. Underneath the sponsor hoarding indicating Movistar are the leaders of the team's classification. Trek Segafredo are in second, followed by Bora Hansgrohe. Trentin can see the motorbikes just around the corner, but they've still got a fair gap on Simon Clark.
He's 1:10 behind Simon Clark. That will put him around 350 to 400 metres behind Clark on the road, maybe even closer to 300.
And we see the flags of the Basque country, as we always do in the Pyrenees, and they have some hope in the breakaway with Pello Bilbao. He's the rider in the turquoise colours of Astana. That's the start of the climb now for Matteo Trentin.
Well, if Simon Yates isn't at or near his best, Pello Bilbao has got to be the favourite in this group. And Dylan Turns, he's riding with that relaxed feeling of having won a stage already.
Saw the graphic on the side of the screen down at the bottom right-hand corner, indicating the time bonuses at the top. Michael Matthews is all in for Nico Roach, as Tim Wellens, the King of the Mountains jersey, is all in for Tim Wellens.
Yeah, he is not waiting anymore.
Benoot is still in this group. Benoot is still in this group as well for Soudal Lotto.
So Wellens, he took the KOM points, made a big effort to get them. Chis Benoot further back here in the red sleeves with the white body behind Greg van Avermaet, it's Jasper Stuyven, then Narsen, plenty of Belgians in this group, more classics riders as well. And I would expect them to be offloaded when the real climbers of this group start to light it up.
And we've just missed him in yellow. If the cameraman turned to his right, is Mike Turnison, who's just been dropped. Successful day for Mike Turnison.
The time gap to Trentin for Simon Clark, 55 seconds. So he's taken about 25 seconds off him really quickly with that acceleration. But now on the steep slopes, he may also start to pay for that effort. I'm sure he is waiting for the arrival of Simon Yates.
And I'm of the view that Simon Clark is a superior climber to Matteo Trentin.
Same.
Incidentally, the Dutch network, NOS, have just posted a photo of Rowan Dennis's bike parked at the finish line out the front of the Bahrain Merida team bus. So that story continues to develop with intrigue. It was just slipping off the back. That was a weight. That was a not being dropped. Stage win already in this race for number 84. That's Dylan Groenewegen. They take over at the front. This is what the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, was waiting for. The attack now coming. This is Matthias Frank from AG to Le Mondial as Mühlberger responds.
This is on the steep slopes within the first 4 kilometres of this Category 1 climb of the Orcat en 6 ans. Nico Roach, but the better climbers are starting to go up the road. Still no movement from Pello Bilbao or Simon Yates.
And there he is, 194. Eiking has collected one. Good teamwork by one of the smaller teams in the race. And Guillaume Martin is racing for the general classification. He's 25th, almost 6 minutes behind. Fabulous news about yesterday's stage winner, Caleb Ewan. The flowing locks of Daniel Oss. Big day in the breakaway, and now they've got one of their Mühlberger. He was second on a stage at the Dauphiné behind the current yellow jersey, Alaphilippe.
The Basque fans in the Pyrenees, it is one of the best parts of the Tour de France. There are some Basque riders in the peloton. Of course, they're cheering for them, but they cheer for everyone.
Mühlberger, followed then by Frank.
And the gap opening up, and these two on the hunt.
And Luke won't mind me saying this. If he's still on the front, the tempo isn't super high.
My next comment was going to be, the break will win.
We did hear rumours at the start of the stage about Nibali having a stomach bug.
Stay tuned on the official word on Rowan Dennis. We haven't heard anything other than someone vaguely say he seems to be okay. Around at some stage in this tour, and he can make it into a breakaway move and maybe win himself and his team a stage.
The 4 riders out in front as the reaction is coming from Nico Roach, followed then by Simon Yates, Clark, Trentin, Frank and Mühlberger. Of those 4, Trentin would be the quickest in a sprint finish if it came down to that. So Clark is really paying the price for that effort along the Valley Road, and that is blunting his climbing ability. This is Yates. Simon Yates still needs to get rid of a lot of riders on this climb.
One he's just about to catch, that's Mühlberger. He's not slow at the finish. When it comes to riders of this type, the climbers, he needs to offload.
Ineos in complete control of the peloton.
Getting into the rhythm.
This is the sort of day that's so much easier to control than a flat stage that is meant to be for the sprinters.
They train a lot harder than this as a group when they're riding in the mountains. Look at the face of Nico Roche, the tongue out, the grimace, baring the teeth. Galopin.
Yes, trying to come across from AG to Le Mondial. He's got his teammate, Matthias Frank, in this group.
And Mühlberger has gone again after being caught. Surprise, surprise.
Followed by Roche, then Frank, then it is Galopin. And you can see the turquoise colours of Pello Bilbao, the rider from the Basque Country in the Astana team.
It's a surprise for me that he hasn't followed the move of Simon Yates.
13 seconds, the gap. Trentin closing in really quickly on Clark. This is Mühlberger.
Maybe Simon Yates just took the pace off, rest and recharge, go again. That's the thing that really good climbers can do. If they can get onto the descent, they're a huge chance to stay away, because Simon Yates, who at the moment is still on the front.
And Schachmann and Bilbao are coming across to the group with Yates.
That is a bit of a surprise. He's on the radio. I'd love to be able to eavesdrop. The face
Clark
doesn't look happy. Clark is dropped. Trentin pushes on. The gap only small. 17 seconds over the group containing his teammate, Simon Yates, Pello Bilbao. All men that Trentin can easily handle in a sprint.
Who to fear from that group? Clark is sticking to his own rhythm because he fears being dropped by some of the superior climbers amongst his trait. Then here goes Bilbao.
This is Serge Pauls. He is coming back to the front group.
Clark has now been caught by Bilbao and Galopin. It'll be difficult for Clark to up the rhythm once again with all the energy he spent on his own through the Valley Road.
Behind Trentin, it's Bilbao. Then it's Mühlberger, Nico Roche. They've passed Simon Clark. Now Simon Yates far in the background. He was making acceleration to come across to that group as well. Galopin second last man.
He has to stay at that same rhythm. The pink colours of Clark going backwards. Yates is now attacking. He's trying to loop across and get onto the back wheel of Trentin. And if he gets there, surely Trentin has to go.
To go straight up and over, put them under so much pressure. He's got everyone in the red to blow them up. He's still got 30 kilometres to go.
It's been a good tour so far for Mitchelton Scott. Here's Clark suffering now at the back, trying to stick with Serge Pauls, the man in orange.
Nonetheless, a great, I think, exactly what he needed to do.
He needed someone with him. That's Frank who goes through to the front for AG to Le Mondial.
They've got to just drive the pace and try and go straight across. Hope that Nico Roche contributes with them, because it's going to be Schachmann and Trentin sitting on getting a free ride. This is now turning out to be ideal for Matteo Trentin. Free ride and sharpen up those sprinting legs. A man who's been top 10 in the bunch sprints so far, getting over the top almost of two Category 1s and putting himself in contention for a stage win.
Psychologically, how good a move is this? And just letting Simon Yates know, I've got your measure.
Yep, got you covered. I'm happy to do a few turns. When Yates made another acceleration, Bilbao just stayed steady state, but I'll ride my way back on by the top.
Today, he collected 10 points at the top of the Col de Peyrasourde.
No points at the top of this climb, but it's been a good day out for the man in the polka dot jersey from the Soudal Lotto team. And they are just having a fantastic Tour de France. The peloton, they've lost about a minute so far on this climb due to the pace going up by Simon Yates and Gregor Mühlberger. That's of no concern. They're not worried about anybody out of this breakaway group that started with 40. It's now down to 2 in front.
And all the Basque flags on the side, the red, the white and the green, they'll be yelling the loudest for the man in the Astana colours. There he is, third on the road.
40 seconds to the chasing group, with the teammate of Simon Yates, Matteo Trentin, far and away the fastest man in the group. Say, if you want it, you tow me all the way to the line, and then I'll see if I can maybe get you measure.
Dauphiné, when he finished in second position behind Julian Alaphilippe, he made the mistake of leading out from too far. He was afraid of being caught from behind. Almost over the top. It's Yates who leads. The King of the Mountains points, they're insignificant. The Hawkette d'Ancien, that has been scaled for Yates and Mühlberger. A little nervous on the way down. The risk being taken by Bilbao. Trentin.
Yes, I think he's the only one.
But he probably shouldn't, because he's got Yates out in front.
Follow the second best in the group. If the gap then opens, hit over alone. See if he can catch it, not dragging it.
One risk at a time.
I think Mühlberger in a very good position, looking for the stage win. He's had the support all day long of Oss and Peter Sagan setting the pace in the breakaway.
It must be confidence building for Mühlberger, the young Austrian, to have Peter Sagan work for you throughout the day.
It is, and it'll also be confidence building. The ride he did in Dauphiné.
It was a genuine photo finish. There was nothing in it. Bilbao makes it 3. He has made contacts. His first appearance at the Tour de France. The last couple of seasons, his big objective has been the Giro d'Italia, and he's been successful.
To dislodge the other, if there is a tiny gap. And there's the arm of Mühlberger. Come on, ride through, contribute. And Bilbao saying, Senor, I just got here.
He did indeed. 8:15, back to the yellow jersey. This is the chasing group. This is Serge Pals at the rear of the group for CCC in the orange colours. 2 riders in this group from AG to our Le Mondial. They just didn't have the legs on the climb. Matthias Franck and Tony Galopin. And a Trek Segafredo rider in third last position who's reintegrated with this group. That is Fabio Follini. Over the top of the Hawkette d'Ancien for the main peloton. Movistar, likewise Jumbo-Visma, it's just a matter of getting down this descent safely. No need for them to take too big a risk. Good day for the yellow jersey. He goes in behind the white jersey of Egan Bernal.
These 3 pushing on really hard together. All 3 still very committed. At one point, a shake of the legs for Simon Yates. At what point Bilbao and Yates will start to think about the speed and the power that Mühlberger possesses and what they're going to do about it.
And when does the tactical game start? And look at the speed on the climb. At the front of the race, 28 minutes and 44 seconds. Back in the peloton, almost 4 minutes slower. They really were cruising. Out to a minute and 15 seconds. Nico Roche in the red colours for Sunweb.
Serge Pals goes through in the front in the orange for CCC. It's a familiar sight, but it's Julian Alaphilippe who's hitched his wagon onto the back of the British super team. He is having a great day out in defence of his yellow jersey. It'll be a very straightforward day for him. He'll collect it again, and he will be going with everything and then some in the time trial tomorrow around Pau.
Here are the 3 leaders. One of these 3 will win the stage, I'm convinced. They are gaining more time on the chasers. Has won stages in Grand Tours. So too has Bilbao. Mühlberger, the young Austrian, he hasn't. But he, on paper, in a sprint, is the favourites. But in a group of 3, it's a lot more difficult to control. And that is why, on the stage in the Briod, Daryl Impey was so happy to work with Tish Benoot, because one-on-one, he definitely had the victory.
If and when they start to attack him, he can't wait for Yates or Bilbao to react. He's just more powerful. Close it down straight away, ride with the responsibility of being the fastest in the group, and then go to the front, control from the front, and don't let your guard down and get boxed in.
Place finish for Mühlberger at the Criterium de Dauphiné might be the most important lesson in his career, as he's in a box seat to win a stage in the Tour de France. When Adam and Simon took up cycling as young kids, their dad was a bit worried about the dangers of riding on the road, so he took them to the velodrome. 2 kilometres.
It's now. Yates swings to the wheel of Mühlberger. He does not want to go through anymore. Bilbao took over.
And now big group coming back to the chasers that are more than 2 minutes behind, and they're racing for 4th.
Yates won't take over anymore. He does! With this sort of time gap back to the chasing group, I thought Bilbao,
this is good
he
for
just
Yates.
rolls straight over. Mühlberger follows. He's back in that good position.
Yates wants the wheel of Mühlberger. He does not want to be behind Bilbao, number 72.
Maybe waiting till he's a little bit closer to the kilometre marker. It's always that choice of, do I do one more turn or do I wait already? Flicks the elbow. Bilbao goes through. 1K to go. The Flamme Rouge.
This is Tish Benut. This is the celebration. Congratulations from Bilbao. That's 2. This is their most successful tour as a team since 2013, when they won 2 stages and they had Gerrans and Impey in yellow.
He didn't manage to lead through the last corner like he needed to, and Yates up the inside managed to pin him up against the fence.
No early celebration. Mühlberger never put himself in a position to be able to sprint.
What he needed to do as the man who on paper had the best sprint, and he did the complete opposite. Wrong side of the road, not accelerating before the corner. Mühlberger found himself caught on the outside and pinned against the barriers.
The maillot jaune of Julien Alaphilippe won't hold huge fears for Geraint Thomas. But the yellow jersey has to go up on the podium, post-stage interviews. It's a long process. But for Thomas, straight to the team bus, straight to the hotel, preparation for the individual time trial. An opportunity tomorrow for Richie Porte. He could take some time back on many of the riders in front of him, but I don't expect him to take time back on Geraint Thomas.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't think he'll take time back. He'll lose some time. But the day after to Tourmalet, I think we'll find out really what sort of form Richie Porte has, because he has to start riding aggressively already in this Tour de France ASAP.
9 minutes and 38 seconds, the gap for the peloton, but that will not change the top 10 in the overall classification. Adam, who's in 7th position overall, 1 minute and 47 seconds behind the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe, whose nearest rival is the defending champion, Geraint Thomas. Kruijswijk has been good, so consistent. Likewise, Emmanuel Bookman. Enric Mas is one of the teammates of Alaphilippe. He should be good over the next few days. Then it's Yates. Quintana, he's had his challenges. He fell yesterday. Let's hope he's okay. The time trial will reveal a caught against the barricades. Bilbao rattling and rolling, but it was bike length to spare.
C'est une journée de deuil.
It's a day of mourning for France and for the Tour de France.
Une journée de deuil pour le Tour de France. Nous connaissons très bien
know Nice very well.
Chaque année.
Every year in March, we organise Paris-Nice.
Nous sortons d'une réunion de crise avec.
We've had an emergency meeting with the prefect of the Ardèche, the police forces, the gendarmerie, representatives of the GIGN, in connection with the higher state authorities. Today's stage in the Ardèche will be contested.
Dans quelques instants, une minute de silence.
In a few minutes, we'll have a minute's silence at the village depart. And again this evening, the stage winner, yellow jersey wearer, and other jersey holders will pay tribute to the victims.
Avec donc une nouvelle minute de silence. Nous souhaitons que cette journée.
Our thoughts are with the bereaved families. We extend our condolences to everybody affected by the tragedy.
À tous ceux qui ont été touchés, qui ont perdu un être cher, à tous ceux qui sont.
We wondered about having the race today or not.
Dans leur chair et dans leur être. Nous nous sommes interrogés en effet.
But in agreement with the state authorities, we believe that the race must go on. And we shouldn't give in to the pressure of the people who would like us to change our lifestyle. The Tour de France will go on in sobriety and dignity. Good day. Thank you. Somber words on a somber day in France following the tragedy on Bastille Day. The occasion where words are almost impossible to find the right ones, and the director of the tour, Christian Prudhomme, has managed to do that. Hello and welcome to stage 13 of the Tour de France. It's been a much-awaited individual time trial, and as stated by the tour director, the race must go on. It's into the Ardèche today. The wind will be blowing once again. The course is tough. Individual time trial day starting in Bourg-Saint-Denis, making its way through to Le Caverne de Pont-d'Arc. It's 37.5 kilometres, and this is anything but flat. It's not a mountain stage against the clock, but it is lumpy. A 7-kilometre climb to get things started, across the plateau, descent, and then climb through to the finish.
Now racing up towards the finish here. The clock will come into play. He's already conceded 2.5 minutes to the day's possible winner in Tom Dumoulin, but he's more concerned about the arrival. I think he's going to concede over 2 minutes to Chris Froome with this performance, and that for him will be simply very, very bad, and probably will lose him the Tour de France. As he comes into the home straight now, he's racing for 15th place. It'll slip away. It's a long way up to the finish here.
Yeah, well, Phil, don't count him out quite so far away from Paris, because the next individual time trial is a mountain time trial, which could give him the advantage over Chris Froome.
I love your optimism, Paul. As we watch here, Tom Dumoulin's time get well to the better of 3 minutes and 7 seconds, conceded to Quintana, by Quintana. Now, the big thing is, what has Yates done? And that's the most important thing. He's the next man to finish.
Here he is, Phil, out on the course. So Yates just hugging the barriers, getting in there as close as he can to shorten the distance around those corners. Once again, once the pain and the speed starts to drop away, gets out of the saddle, forcing himself to find every last little bit of energy.
Well, Mollema has climbed over Quintana in the overall classification with that ride. Bardet will not have improved. He's slower than Quintana. Well, enjoying an early tea, I think, Tom Dumoulin, because he knows now he must be worried about Froome, because Froome was only 40-odd seconds down at the last check, and if he's climbed this hill really well, he'd be very close to his time. But a quick calculation at 3 kilometres to go, I'm not sure he could get up in the time he had left.
Well, it would be one of those amazing comebacks, because, in fact, Froome, although he's improved his position at each of the individual time checks, his time deficit to Tom Dumoulin was further and further back. At 10 seconds to begin with, then 17 seconds, then 48 seconds. And 48 seconds is an awful large amount to pull back in the final kilometre of this climb.
Adam Yates continues. Remember, he's a British rider riding for an Australian team, Orica Bike Exchange. They lost their leader yesterday in Simon Gerrans, the leader on the road, the team captain. He crashed, went out of the Tour for the 3rd time in his career with a crash injury, a broken collarbone. This man now is the team leader and having to ride for that team. As he comes up towards the finish now, he's looking at 7th, 8th. It's a long way up this home straight for Adam Yates. But hey, the first good news is Chris Froome never caught him. The next good news is I think his time's going to be pretty good.
And maybe the other piece of good news to throw in there, Phil, is he will actually extend his lead in the best young rider competition, because he's gone faster than every other rider less than 25 years of age, and that's what that competition is all about.
This white jersey could be taken all the way to Paris, and that would be some terrific award. Yates is coming up now. The places are slipping away. It's all about time, not places. Just going to be on 53 minutes, conceding shortly 3 minutes to Tom Dumoulin. 21. Adam Yates is going to get inside that, approximately 53.21. 3 Quintana's time. Beats Quintana 53.16. And straight into the straight now. It's still a little way. Is the drive 3 minutes behind Adam Yates. He's now closing it down. He's probably picked back more than 2 minutes, which would put him around a long 50-minute ride here for Chris Froome. He hasn't won the day, but my goodness me, he may have won the Tour de France with a week to go, because he is building on his overall lead with this finish. He can see the clock now as he looks up and finds a few more seconds. He's racing for the second best time here, which is 51.46, and he's gonna just about get inside the time of Oliveira. And that'll do him, because it means he's ahead of every one of his competitors in this year's Tour de France. He gained time on them yesterday with a little help from the judges, and he gains time on them today with a little help from his legs.
Well, there you go, a proficiat coming from Benny Koelen there, a former well-known journalist from Holland. And proficiat, if you don't speak Dutch, means congratulations. So congratulations to Tom Dumoulin, who gets himself a second stage victory. But for Chris Froome, finishing in second place on the stage with that performance, he will extend his lead over everybody else in the overall classification tonight. And it looks very much as if Bauke Mollema will move up into second place with his ride this afternoon. And Adam Yates should just hold on to third place as he extended his lead over Nairo Quintana. But this man was the man who set the bar over all of the time checks. The fastest at 4.3 miles into the race, 7 kilometers. Fastest at 18 kilometers, then at 28 kilometers. Then when he came up to the finishing line, he was faster than everybody else. And more importantly, he got across the line to win himself that second stage, and maybe start to put a little bit of a line between here and Rio de Janeiro, because one thing he's dreaming about is trying to win the individual time trial in Rio in a couple of weeks' time at the Olympic Games. But more importantly, Froome extends his lead in the overall classification as we look our way down on the River Ardèche and the beautiful gorges here. 103 the difference between the first two, and 131 back to Nelson Oliveira. And as a reference, by the way, a 4 times national champion of Portugal in the individual time trial, and a teammate to Nairo Quintana.
Come a victory in Andorra already on the Tour de France, but this is really what you came from, mission accomplished, a winner on the time trial.
Yeah, you're speaking with, at one side, a very happy man, and at one side, a very, very sad, it's a very sad day. And yeah, I woke up to the terrible news from Nice. And it was a very just question, I think, whether we should race or not today. And at the end, I think also a very just decision to race. I think we cannot let terrorists decide our lives here in our society. But yeah, it's terrible what happened, and it shadows the day a bit, or not only a bit, but a lot. And I think that's yeah, that's the only right thing. And yeah, so you're speaking with a two-faced man today. Of course, I'm happy with the win. It's what I came for in this Tour de France. At the same time, my thoughts are with everyone involved in the yeah, horrific attack in Nice.
Thank you very much.
Well, quite right. And this is how he did it. Put the memories of that tragedy in Nice to the back of his mind and concentrated on the job in hand. Went out on the course, and he caught, first of all, Luis Leon Sanchez, himself a very respectable former time trial champion of Spain. And when he came up to the line, he'd set the bar exceptionally high at every individual time check. The fastest man all the way out on the course, and he went faster than Nelson Oliveira, the early leader.
but setting that bar at 27.8 miles an hour, and that's around about 54 kilometers an hour at 50 minutes and 15 seconds. There were not very many men in this world could have gone faster than that, but he beat Chris Froome, the defending Tour de France champion, by 1:03. Rowan Dennis of Australia crept into the top 5 there with a 5th place, so 1:41 back, and that's a very good reference. Bauke Mollema, brilliant ride, the best of all of the other contenders, in 6th place, and Geraint Thomas in 7th, just 2 minutes flat behind. Tony Martin, a 3-time world time trial champion, in 9th place, and Steve Cummings in 10th place at 2 minutes 24 seconds.
Well, there's the situation, and it looks as though Chris Froome tonight's going to lead by nearly 2 minutes in the Tour de France after an outstanding ride. And what we must say is a collapse by the challengers in this rather short time trial of 23.3 miles or 37.5 kilometres. Well, that's the situation on the Tour de France, and what has been a very, very sad day for the world, not just for France. Let's go back to Matthew Keenan.
Well spoken by Tom Dumoulin at the end of the stage. It's a bittersweet day for Tom Dumoulin. He achieved what he came to the Tour de France to achieve, but it's certainly been put into context by what happened in Nice just last night. Here's a look at the general classification. This is the general classification before today's stage got underway. So this has certainly changed, because Adam Yates is not 47 seconds behind Chris Froome. Chris Froome has extended his lead, and Bauke Mollema, with his performance today, has climbed up the general classification. In fact, there's quite a significant shuffling of the top 10. And a good performance by TJ Van Garderen today. He's moved himself up a little bit in the overall standings. Likewise, Richie Porte. Romain Bardet, well, he fought well in the time trial, which is a discipline that he normally loses big chunks of time in. Fabio Aru, it looked disastrous at that final intermediate time check, but he came home so strongly. So I'm looking forward to seeing confirmation of the top 10 in the overall standings. Stage result, Chris Froome was certainly the best of the men racing for the general classification, and of his nearest rivals in terms of that battle for yellow, Bauke Mollema was in 6th position on the stage, and Chris Froome managed to gap him by an extra 51 seconds. So he has more than a 1 minute and 50-second advantage over Bauke Mollema, who I think has moved up to 2nd place. Here it is, 1:47 the gap to Bauke Mollema, 2:45 to Adam Yates. It's then Nairo Quintana at almost 3 minutes. Valverde, followed by Van Garderen. It's then Bardet at 4:04. Porte moves into the top 10. Dan Martin is in 9th position, and Fabio Aru has slipped to 10th at 5 minutes and 16 seconds behind. Hello and welcome to stage 14 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you, where today all the action kicks off in Montélimar. Chris Froome now leads Bauke Mollema, who's moved up to 2nd position. It's a 1 minute and 47-second gap between those two. It's then Adam Yates with Nairo Quintana at almost 3 minutes behind. Yesterday, no formal podium presentation as we normally see. There was a minute's silence paying tribute to the victims of the attack in Nice. Stage 14, and as you can see from the map, it is virtually directly north, starting in Montélimar, making its way through to the Parc d'Oiseau. A blockhead wind throughout the stage, and the last of our stages of more than 200 kilometres. 208 kilometres. In fact, the second last. There's another one to come as we go to Switzerland. Clear blue skies getting the race underway. 5 stages this year of more than 200 kilometres, and there was a minute's silence once again at the start of the stage today with all the riders together, and Christian Prudhomme wearing the black armband as he did yesterday. It was a sombre mood on the Tour de France yesterday. It was a strange atmosphere, in fact, and for good reason, as the Tour did what it could to pay its respects to those that lost their lives and their families, of course, in Nice. This is the situation of the race. Breakaway group of 4 riders out to an advantage of 4 minutes and 46 seconds. It's quite a strong group. At the back of the group, this is Jeremy Waugh from the FDJ team. Just in front of him is Cesare Benedetti from Bora Argon 18. In the green colours from Cannondale Drapac, it's Alex Howes. And the most experienced in the group, number 74 from IM Cycling, the Swiss rider, Martin Alminger. Martin Alminger at the back of the group is the best placed in the overall standings. 1 hour, 31 minutes and 38 seconds behind Chris Froome. So the responsibility to contain this breakaway won't be falling to Sky and the yellow jersey holder of Froome. It will be for the teams of the sprinters, those that think that this is their chance to get the win. Arguably, the rider is Andre Greipel, and it's his birthday today. 34 years of age, so happy birthday to Andre Greipel. Romans-sur-Isère, the small town that which is the home of Philippe Saint-André, who's the former captain of the French rugby team. He was the captain of the French rugby team from 2011 through to 2015. The Jacquemart Tower that we're now getting a chance to take a look at. The tower overlooking the town since 1429. It stands at some 37 metres tall. And that jack of the clocks that you can see on there, there's still around about 50 of these remaining in France, but this is the biggest one. It stands at 2.6 metres tall. It's also the oldest. It's been a slow start to the stage because of the headwind and, of course, the accumulated fatigue of the battle that they've had over the past few days with vicious crosswinds, which have made the racing very dangerous. So although the headwind makes for a long stage, I'm sure there's a fair few riders that are quite relieved about the headwind, as the headwind makes the racing conditions safer. Much safer than a tailwind or a crosswind, particularly the crosswind. Another chance to take a look at this tower with the jack of the clocks, which stands alongside the big bell. The tower dates back to 1429, but the jack of the clocks is a lot younger than that. It's only a few hundred years old. None of the riders in this breakaway group of four have been stage winners at the Tour de France in the past, and they know that their odds of upsetting the sprinters today are slim, but they were never going to win the stage if they just stayed back in the peloton. So this is their best chance. Benedetti at the back of the group, we saw him in the breakaway on stage 2. That was the breakaway that almost made it, when we were saying exactly what I just said. They don't have much of a chance. 33.15 kilometres the average speed so far on the stage. Benedetti in the black colours from Bora Argon 18. He was in the break with Jesper Stuyven when we saw Jesper attack his breakaway companions and get caught with just 450 metres to go. It was Peter Sagan who went on to win the stage ahead of Julien Alaphilippe. And it's the three teams of the big sprinters who are doing the chasing at this point. Dimension Data, edX Quickstep and Lotto Soudal. You can then see the full contingent of the men in black, the Sky Squad, looking after the yellow jersey of Chris Froome. They're not doing any chasing. They're saving as many of their resources as possible as we're back into the mountains tomorrow with a big day of climbing on the agenda for stage 15.
For me, he already is the revelation of this year's Tour de France. Right up there at the moment at 2:45. Now breathing down his neck. Quintana 14 seconds behind him. Verde, another 2 seconds behind that Van Garderen. Then less than a minute back to Bardet, Richie Porte. So many big name riders, experienced riders, more mature at Grand Tour level, right behind him. If he was to hang on to his place in the GC, or even move up onto the podium, it would be an incredible performance. If he was to drop and finish 9th or 10th, I would still say he's had an incredible debut riding for GC. It's not his first tour, but his first go at trying to ride GC and taking it day by day. Whatever happens, he's had a fantastic tour.
It's been a brilliant ride by Adam Yates, but there's plenty still to come. This is Alex Howes at the front of the race, a breakaway group of 4, almost at the top of the climb. The Côte de Fort Échaud, 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. It's just a Category 4 climb. It's not really a contest. Alex Howes continues to set the tempo. Jeremy Waugh is not going to challenge, and it will be Alex Howes who gets 1 point added to his name in the race for the polka dot jersey.
Well, something there for Cannondale Drapac.
And he's maintained the momentum over the top. He didn't kick the clutch in, flicked the elbow as soon as he got the point. He made the statement of continuing with the pressure right at the front. This is the Chateau of Montchenou, which is a medieval chateau dating back to the 12th century and is now privately owned. And you can see the old fortress wall around the outside of it. A lot of it has been dismantled over the centuries, but the chateau itself, standing right in the middle, still looks as if it is in pristine condition. And it's probably about time to get the cover off the pool and go for a swim. 26 degrees this afternoon. Lars back at the front, followed by Nat Nilbid-Hahn. Next is Peter Vakoc. And for Team Sky, this is an ideal situation. This is a day for them almost to treat it as a recovery stage up until that last 30 or 40 kilometres where things start to intensify.
Yes, a bit of active recovery, if you can call it that, for 208.5 kilometres. I spoke about the sprinter with the best and the most well-drilled team having the best chance. Now, it's not just about the sprinters and their teams. All of the GC riders we've been speaking about over the last few minutes, them and all their teams are going to be at the front because everybody will know the wind conditions here at the finish. That final 3 kilometres, the 3 kilometre rule, we've spoken about that a number of times. If you crash or puncture, you get the time of the group you're in. But if the race just splits, you lose that time. In 3 kilometres, you may not lose much. They don't want to lose any seconds. We just spoke about how close they are from 4th through 8th at the moment. Nobody wants to lose 5 or 6 seconds. So it's going to be chaos as they turn towards the finish.
The peloton now 1 kilometre away from going over the top of this Category 4 climb. Vasila Katienka is the man at the back in the black colours of Team Sky. And they're about to start the next climb. Once they get out of this town, they're on to the next climb, which again, it's a Category 4 climb. And it's relatively short at just 2.1 kilometres. And only 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey here. Big crowds on the side of the road once again. Martin Elminger with the bidden up, indicating he wants the team car to come up alongside him. Just drops that down for one of the spectators on the side of the road. The locals have come out in force. And all the riders have made it pretty clear after what we saw on Mont Ventoux, when a few spectators went overboard, that they love the spectators on the side of the road. And 99% of them do the right thing. They applaud, they clap everybody that comes through. And they don't want to see that change. It's just that 1% that oversteps the line every now and then. We can't forget that the stage of Mont Ventoux was also on Bastille Day, big festivities, and just maybe a few people might have indulged in the local produce of the crushed grapes that have been fermented for a little bit too long. Jeremy Waugh from FDJ stretches the legs at the front. This is Benedetti from Bora Argonne 18. The most experienced rider from this breakaway group, a former winner of the Tour Down Under. And at the back, in the green colours from the Cannondale Drapac, Alex Howes. He has been with the Slipstream organisation all through its various sponsors since it started, which was way back in 2007. Rode well on home soil last year, Alex Howes, at the World Championships, finished in 12th position in the race that was won by Peter Sagan. He's had one crash already. You can still see the damage on his left arm. And he's shown his resilience by getting into the breakaway today.
Good job getting into the break. Probably not the ideal day for a breakaway, especially 4 men against the bunch on what looks to be the final chance reaches Paris on Sunday week. These riders will know they stand very little chance of making it to the finish and fighting it out for the win. But you don't know if you don't go. The Swiss rider in second position here, former winner of Tour Down Under, he's always prepared to have a go. Having a go back in the peloton now is Etixx Quickstep. And look at that single file line. Probably more a case of just coming down those winding roads after the KOM rather than a big increase in the pace.
And they're about to approach that small town that we've just seen the breakaway go through. It's going to be safer if it's strung out in single file. The impact of a fall is more significant because they are going faster, but it is safer.
And you see the riders also more prepared to just single out and follow the wheels because they know there's little to no danger of coming into a crosswind once they get out of that village, because the race goes in one direction, due north all day, and that Mistral wind has swung to the north since yesterday. That's why we saw the riders getting hit in the side along the time trial course, the Gorge d'Ardèche. So not as much stress in the bunch. You see the flags flying there, not completely in the face at the moment. It also looks fairly protected compared to the wind out on the rest of the course.
The past three stages, the flags have had the threads torn out of the end of them. It's been going that violently. Today, it is still relatively windy. We'd call it a windy day if we hadn't had the past 3 days. It's just after what there's been, this is reasonably easy.
I'd almost say the past 14 days, Matt. I think this has been the windiest tour I've ever seen. Normally we get 2 or 3 days of high winds that split the peloton. We've seen it so often in this Tour de France, from up in Normandy at the start along the coastline there, and then particularly over the last 3 days. That Mistral wind has thrown a big spanner in the works for many riders and given them a lot harder ride too. So expect to see some riders really start to struggle in the last week because they've been expending a lot of energy on stages where they normally could just sit the wheels and ride the stage out. So it's made it a tougher tour.
This is Benedetti at the front for Bora Argon 18. He's picked up a few points throughout the race this year in the battle for the King of the Mountains jersey, but he's no challenge to Thomas de Gent. Earlier this season, he managed to win the King of the Mountains classification at Tirreno Adriatico. A big tour that starts the season, really kicks off the season in Italy in March. Jeremy Waugh, he was just backed off this group ever so slightly, and Martin Alminger was making sure that he was keeping an eye on him. He's been a stage winner, Jeremy Waugh, in Paris-Nice, which is also organised by the organisers of the Tour de France. And it always finishes, well, not always finishes, but generally has a stage finish at some point on the Promenade d'Anglais, where we saw that a tragedy on Bastille Day, the terrorist attack in a truck. So a lot of the riders, it felt very close to home for them, particularly the English-speaking riders. Many of them, when they moved to Europe, lived in Nice or nearby in Monaco. Looks like Benedetti is going to collect the 1 point on offer this time over the top of this Category 4 climb. No challenge from Martin Alminger, the most experienced man in the group. He just lets the Italian drift forward and take the point, because Martin Alminger wants to keep this group organised. Well, this that we're looking at now by Cheval, the ideal palace of Cheval. This was built by a postman, and it took him 33 years to build it. He started by just doing a small little waterfall, and then he just continued to build. He grabbed oyster shells, little rocks from all around the area that he collected throughout his day. There's snail shells in there as well. It took him 30 years to build this, and he wanted to be buried in it, but the local municipality wouldn't allow it. They said, well, you have to be buried in the local cemetery. So then he spent another 8 years building himself his own tomb in a local cemetery. This was in the latter part of the 1800s. He started building this, which he first called a source of life, back in 1879, and he continued to work on it for 33 years. It was his ideal palace. The dream place.
And the building materials, he didn't go down to Bunnings
No.
or a hardware store or the building supplies to get what he used. Shells, snails, oysters and stones.
All collected from the local area, the stones and so on anyway.
Yes, Matt, you can see the breakaway just in that little staggered formation, offset to the right of the rider in front, just catching the ideal slipstream. So this will be a little sectional, just push the peloton a little bit from left to right. But then it quickly changes direction again and will generally stay as a headwind until they get up to about the last 3 kilometres. Then it's all crosswind to the finish line.
And I think through that section in the peloton, there's a truce at this point. They know what is still to come. There's a big week of climbing through the mountains before they reach Paris. And Lars Bak, one of the captains of the peloton, leading the charge for Lotto Soudal. It was such a popular stage win for Lars Bak when he collected a victory at the Giro d'Italia 3 years ago. Clipped off the front, managed to win on his own. Not often he gets the chance to have the freedom to target a victory. He's part of the contingent of riders from Lotto Soudal who's extended his contract to coincide with Andre Greipel. Still Jeremy Waugh on the front, wearing number 128. His best result in the stage of the Tour de France was a 3rd place finish. That was back in 2011 into Lourdes. Thor Hushoff went out, the stage winner, and that time around it was on stage 13. There's Julien Alaphilippe, number 182 at the back of the peloton for edX Quickstep. He won't have to do much work at the back end of today's stage, surely, for Marcel Kittel, after the fall that he had yesterday.
And Julien Alaphilippe, not really one of the lead-out squad within the edX Quickstep team. Looking more for Fabio Sabatini, Ilio Kesa, to help Marcel Kittel into position and lead the sprint out.
Bora Argon 18, they're in the breakaway today, but also just spotted at the back, number 135, Sam Bennett, who was in that nasty fall on stage 1 with Michael Morkov as well, who's since abandoned the race and was the first rider to head home, but he bravely fought on for almost the entire first week. I wonder if Sam Bennett today, if his legs are in a position, if his body's in a position for him to have a full-throttled attempt at the sprint finish. I hope so. He deserves to have his chance.
I hope so for him too, because after all the suffering that he's gone through to get to this point after crashing on stage 1, it'll be a nice reward for him to get a good result, or at least just for his own confidence and to make it worth all that suffering, at least get up there and be able to have a go full throttle, even if it's not a win or a top 3, just to be amongst it again.
Andre Greipel, the German national champion, one of the big favourites for the stage. The situation with Sam Bennett reminds me of Michael Matthews last year. He crashed on stage 3 and he kept plucking away, hoping that he'd recuperate and be in a position to challenge for a stage victory. He didn't quite get there, but I'm sure that that whole experience has served him really well and made him appreciate even more so the stage win this year.
It's done that, and Michael Matthews has said last year, riding through the rest of the tour after stage 3 with 4 broken ribs, the amount of suffering that he did on that tour, he said it's taught me how hard I can actually push myself physically and mentally. So anything I come up against from now on, I've got that experience that helps me. It helps me mentally to know that I can push through something like that.
Making their way through the town of Benaron. And they are still 5 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint.
Turn, but just now flicks out and lets Jeremy Waugh go through. But Elmiger, no, he flicked out and then increased the pace. Here goes Benedetti from the back.
Benedetti opens up, and that does catch Elminger by surprise. So he was closing the gate, Elminger, so as they could only go on one side. That was so as nobody could do what Benedetti did and surprise him as the Italian collects.
Not only surprised them from the back, but had the horsepower to keep opening the gap after he went. Elminger saw it pretty quickly and reacted. Did not make up 1 metre on Cesare Benedetti. Good turn of speed from the Italian. You see him, short, sort of stocky build. If you're going to pick a sprinter out of the 4, he's the one you'd say is man most likely. Now, The peloton are now coming to the 1 kilometre to go banner for this sprint. Not a lot of interest just yet back in the peloton as Ethics Quickstep now on the left-hand side in the blue. They look like they're bringing Marcel Kittel up. And he wants to take some points, but on his wheel in green, Peter Sagan. Behind him, Mark Cavendish. Talking of Cavendish, that's not the sign of a man who's going to pull out of the Tour de France to prepare for the Rio Olympics on the track. He's still going for green jersey points. Brian Coquard is behind Cavendish.
The lead-out train for Marcel Kittel. As Peter Sagan is having a conversation with Mark Cavendish, he's looking very comfortable. Notably, Andre Greipel is missing. He is putting all his eggs in the stage win basket. Well, the others, they're just stepping out of the way and waiting for the sprint to come.
One Lotto Soudal policeman, if you like, on the back of this group, but 4 Ethics Quickstep riders lined up for Marcel Kittel, so a bit of a general repetition, I guess you could say, for the final sprint.
And this is Lars Bak just checking across in the red colours, having a look at the situation. 300 metres remaining. Ethics Quickstep, they start to wind things up. It's Kittel who sits in 3rd spot. And now Peter Sagan is the first to go. Marcel Kittel has been caught slightly on the hop. 150 to go. Sagan trying to minimise the energy expenditure while still getting the points. And he collects 5th place on the intermediate sprint, followed by Kittel, then Cavendish. Next in line was Coquard. So Mark Cavendish, although he was in there and amongst it, he didn't spend any energy.
Mark Cavendish not even getting out of the saddle to take part in the sprint, just rolling in for a few points. Marcel Kittel not prepared to go from a long way out, and that provided Sagan with the opportunity to get the jump up the inside and effectively box Marcel Kittel in a little bit. He knew then it's probably a little bit late, or not too late, but if I'm going to pass him, it's going to require maximum effort, which he's not prepared to do with a stage win on the line. That's what's really important. And I don't think any of those guys really believe they can take green back off Peter Sagan, but sort of just keeping themselves in contention, almost battling for second, just in case something happens to Peter Sagan that means he cannot finish the Tour de France. Then it's an open competition between the rest because Peter Sagan, he's increased his lead for the green jersey. Already had 90 points over Mark Cavendish. It's extended that to at least 92 now.
Well, they've made the most of this roundabout. It's like a natural theatre to be able to look down upon the peloton. This is Vicioso at the back for the Katusha team. Their team leader, Joaquim Rodriguez, he lost ground yesterday, which is no surprise. He was the worst performed of the riders battling for a top 10 finish.
And I still thought that for Joaquim Rodriguez's capabilities in the time trial, he actually did okay. He gave 4:46. That's a lot, but I've seen him do worse in the same situation in past Grand Tours. A very difficult time trial, but if you're going to be a contender for the overall, you've got to keep those sort of losses down to around 2 minutes, I would say, at the most. And I don't believe Joaquim Rodriguez can get anywhere near the podium in this Tour de France, but possibly a top 10. And once we get into the mountains, he's in his territory.
All the way past the Mont Ventoux, right towards the Bouches du Rhône before it actually gets piled out into the Mediterranean. That, by the way, just down there is the Yons Dam, Le Barrage de Yons. It's 100 meters long, and it's entirely located in the municipality of Nièvre. And it is in fact built as a controlling dam for the levels of the Rhône. It was built in 1934. The main purpose is to direct the flow of water and control the levels into the Miribel Dam. The main field now crossing over and into the Département of Verlaine. 25 kilometers to go. There you can just see the dam over to the right hand side there. Quite an interesting dam, and it actually is also used to control the flow into the canal, which is then diverted into a hydroelectric plant not too far away from here. The EDF, Électricité de France, produces an awful large percentage of France's electricity from hydroelectric power. The Miribel Canal, which was founded in 1832, because of the fact that the Rhone River on occasions had actually created a certain amount of flooding, and that's why they decided to build this dam, as they did many other dams are down throughout the length of the Rhone, just to control the level and control the flow. The dam itself, the canal itself, was created towards the end of the 1800s. Back with the leaders now, 16 seconds, and that's not much more than about 250 meters. You can see now their speed. They have lifted up the speed in the leading group of 4 riders to about 54 kilometers now, the main field. Well, 280 meters is their advantage, while the peloton is hovering at just about the same speed, waiting for the moment to pull it all back together. It's interesting that it's Mark Cavendish's team who have come to the front, and they're already taking the risk. Again, you have to be very, very careful not to lay too much energy out too early on. Sitting over to the right-hand side of Cavendish, you had all the Lotto riders. They will be starting to look after their man, and that, of course, is Andre Greipel. And Andre Greipel, I spoke to his team before the start of this race, and they said, well, we do have our lead-out team well sorted out when it comes down to the running towards the finish. And one of the integral parts of the lead-out for Team Lotto is Greg Henderson. As you get a chance to see what a beautiful region this is region number 01. And every region in France, every department in France, every 101 of them has its own little number. And this one, of course, is the first number on the list, 101. Number 01, sorry.
Well, we're getting into the wetlands of the region now, which makes this a protected area for the fauna and the flora, indeed, of the region. As I say, we've not finished here before. There's the flag showing you the strength of the wind. These poor boys are now down to 19 seconds, and Elminger shakes his head because I think he saw them.
Well, he knows now, Phil, that the writing is very much on the wall there, but we're getting to the fairly critical part of this race. So we're at 23 kilometres to go. In 13 kilometres to go, at 10 kilometres from the finish, that's when really the race, I think, will start to wind itself up, and we'll start to see which of the teams of the sprinters want to take control, because inside of the last 10 kilometres there are only 2 corners, a 90-degree to the left and a 90-degree to the right, so it really is a perfect sprinter's day today.
And they're coming right up behind them now, 21 seconds and holding. They're going to have led this race for about 163 kilometres, a little bit more than 100 miles ahead of the field today, but it's just about over now. And we're twisting and turning, so the wind is going from head to cross at a fairly regular fashion just at this moment in time.
Well, as you can see, it's swinging around a lot because we're zigzagging now up towards the finishing town of Villars-les-Dombes. And currently, they're actually, because of the way the race is twisting and turning, they're picking up rather nasty headwind, as you can see there from the Portuguese flag over to the left-hand side.
And they're just showing off because they beat France in the European Football Championships a week ago. The peloton now are going to start changing the whole attitude to the racing today.
Well, just the information that we were picking up, Phil, from all of the teams of the sprinters at the start, they all realise how important it is to have a solid lead-out train down towards the end. You've got Team Dimension data over on the right-hand side. They're all looking after Mark Cavendish, but one of the best lead-out squads over the last few years has been Team Lotto, and they will be looking for a 5-man lead-out with Marcel Seeberg to lead out early on, Deboucher, Roland, and Greg Henderson, the last man to lead out Greipel.
Almost over for the leaders, Jens Voigt, but the wind is very hard. Can you explain how it is? Because you've ridden the Tour in conditions like this.
Well, we also had the chance this morning to ride the last kilometers of the circuit. So there's a 90-degree turn a little bit after the 6-kilometer mark. And then that leads for 2.5 kilometers into some really strong crosswind. So it is very, very likely that the peloton is going to split up there. So like Christian van der Velde said before, it's going to get a little hairy to get into that corner in a good position in the first place. But in between 3 kilometers to go and 5.5 kilometers to go, that is such a crucial part of today's stage. Basically, the whole stage is going to be decided in this part in the crosswind. So having a good, strong team and a whole lot of riders together with you, it's definitely going to help you. And there I see the advantage for people like Kittel having the strong and experienced team for this behind them.
Wow, well, I'm excited about that turn. I must be honest. It looks about 15 kilometres to that little change of direction at the moment. And they're still doing their best not to catch these four riders as they continue to lead. But it'll be that left-hand turn. We're looking at the diagram on our running books at the moment. It's a long, straight road, very acute angle. It's going to be a tough crosswind there.
Well, the complicated thing is, yes, it's just about exactly on 6 kilometres to go to the finish. There's that 90-degree turn to the left. But not only the sprinters will be trying to get well positioned there, Phil, the overall contenders will be trying to stay at the front of the pack. Well, okay, just 10 seconds is the gap off the four leaders. I mean, in the main field there, you can almost put your hand out and put it on the back of the four-man breakaway. I'm a little surprised, though, to see, just sitting at the back here, number 164, because he's one of the guys I was talking about as being an integral part of the lead-out for Andre Greipel. That was Jens de Boucher. Maybe he's going to scramble up to the front in a short while and try to get himself in a position for that lead-out, but they can still always count on the big Marcel Seeberger. He's 1.98 meters tall. He's the tallest man in the Tour de France, and that, in old money, is 6'6". 21 kilometers, and that's going to take these guys now, when you factor in the weather and the wind conditions, it's going to take them about 25 to 26 minutes to get to the line. You can see the average speeds between the main field and the peloton. They're only separated by around about 150 meters, but they've definitely turned it off in the peloton. Just having a look over to the right hand side, you can see the red jerseys. Left hand side is the white and black jerseys of Dimension Data. Here's one of the little turns, but it's not really critical until they get to that left-hand bend at 6 kilometers to go. And then we will see a massive acceleration in the main field, coming from the sprinters teams, but also coming from BMC and Van Garderen and Port Duo, from Team Sky, looking Movistar, looking after Nairo Quintana, because if they really put the hammer down at that point, we could see a similar situation to the situation that occurred on the road into Montpellier a couple of days ago, where even the leaders get caught out and lose some time.
But now it's eyes down for the sprint kings of the Tour de France. The players or the teammates now setting the pace. There's the right-hand sweeper. Katusha really have confidence now in Alexander Kristoff. They've got four riders up there, and Bosenhagen is up there as well for Dimension Data for Cavendish.
Yeah, but not far away. There's the 3 kilometers to go, Bennett. No more corners. It's pretty much a straight run into the finish line now, and Team Katusha are taking control of the peloton over on the right-hand side. But just look behind them, a little bit further back, the black and blue jerseys. They're all communicating Ethics Quickstep. They're waiting to get their lead-out train organised, but waiting till the final few kilometres.
Mark Cavendish is in there as well, near Bosenhagen, his teammate in a different coloured jersey, is champion of Norway. The black jerseys, they're looking to try and take Brian Cockar on the left of our picture. There's a lot of movement now. Riders are off the road here. Well, they've got back on it, but look at all the places. I wasn't sure whether it was or not.
It was because he's wearing the green jersey and the grey shorts. He's gone to the fashion police this afternoon.
Well, it looks like he's still there to me, Paul.
There you go. I'll agree with you on this one.
Well, thank you.
But it looked so much like him because of the grey shorts, but certainly it's very difficult to catch out Mr. Sagan.
Well, I would have thought he'd put him on the grass, he'd come off ahead of the race. He's that good riding a bike. But the wind is hurting all of the riders here. Just being tailed off the back is Wilco Kelderman. He'll lose time. He was amongst the overall boys for a top 10 finish in Paris. A lot of concern there now. Ethics getting control of the race, though, for Marcel Kittel.
Well, this is one, I would think, probably the best lead-out train. We talked about them a couple of days ago, how well organised they were. Once they get up to about 3 kilometres to go, we'll start to see the real serious line-out, as we're now inside of 1.7 kilometres. It won't be very long now before we start to see coming to the front Tony Martin. There he is in in second position, Phil, just waiting for the moment to wind it up. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And once Tony Martin has done his long term, then they'll throw it over to Maximiliano Ricchesi, who in person is a very good sprinter in his own right. And the last man, hopefully, if everything works out well for Etixx Quickstep, will be Fabio Sabatini to do the final lead out. But now Lotto takes control on the left.
And they've washed away Kittel, who's on the last blue rider on the right there, and he's lost a lot of space as it comes to 1 kilometre.
Well, that was pretty aggressive as they came up to the line. There was a few changes of direction. I think it was a fairly regular sprint, though, but Marcel Kittel put his hand up to complain about the movement from Mark Cavendish. I think that was just general moving in the main field, but obviously, Phil, as we look at that, these are all the top men. That's Cavendish there, Kittel with his hand up, and Peter Sagan throws for the line. And in the other white jersey, nice. John Degenkolb. Nice to see him back.
How nice was that?
Hey, nice one. Nice one. Again.
Well, just take a look at this here. That's Kittel going for the line. Cavendish breaks over him. Now, when the camera caught, Cavendish moved, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, difficult to say. Obviously, Marcel Kittel not happy with that. Cavendish moves slightly to the middle, then back over to the right-hand side, and he's got 4 fingers up there for 4 victories. But really nice to see getting up there John Degenkolb. Just a quick look there. I think John Degenkolb got up there in 4th or 5th position, and it's nice to see him back. When you know the story behind his performance, being knocked off, almost losing a finger, almost losing his life in a very nasty accident at a training camp in the southern part of Spain in the early part of the year. A chance there to look at the Parc des Oiseaux. It's a beautiful park. As I said, it's almost 400 hectares of bird watching paradise. 400 hectares corresponds to around about 1,000 acres. And that big tower you can see in the middle is, of course, one of the watch towers to get a good chance to see 1 or 2 of the rare species of birds that are down here too. So we've got to wait for a few moments to have another look at the finishing line here. But look, as they come around the corner, Cavendish right in the middle there, looking for the win. It's Degenkolb in the white jersey trying to get there, and it's so great to see him back. Sagan comes right up through the middle, and I'm just, well, third, fourth, second, third and fourth, you'll have to go to the photo. Let's have a look here from the side. Cavendish gets up there. On the far side, Christoph second, third, hazard a guess, while Kittel has to settle for 5th. There was certainly a little bit of movement. I think it was involuntary as we look at this one more time. But you see just going there, slipping backwards. A lot of movement in a sprint like this, and it's all under the control there of Etixx at this point. Cavendish moving up into 2nd place. Degenkolb is nicely there in 3rd. Moving into 4th place is Christoph. Cavendish comes up there, and it looked really as if Kittel was trying to get himself back into the slipstream of Cavendish. He almost lost control of the bike. Oh, the lunge for the line. I would think just over on the left-hand side, that was Alexander Christoph, got himself 2nd place, but it was all really very much in the lunge for the line. Hovering around in the middle there as well, finishing inside of the top 10, the Frenchman, Brian Coquart. Well, wonder what the referees will say about that one. But for Cavendish, yes, number 4, but maybe more importantly, number 30. Well, he seems to think there's Dougie Ryder, who actually came into our commentary position just a little bit earlier on and said, well, this is it. This is what it's all about.
Cavendish was going almost 2 to 1 of Marcel Kittel as he went by him. The big German sprinter was already done. That was a protest in frustration as much as it was anything else. Alexander Christoph in 2nd position. The photo for 3rd between Peter Sagan and John Degenkolb, and it was Sagan that got 3rd. Degenkolb 4th, Kittel 5th. Greipel, Coquart, Chimolay, Laporte, Semi Dumoulin. A good sprint into 10th. The race journeys into the Jura. There's barely a flat stretch of road to provide provide to tired legs, and while Chris Froome has a commanding lead, there are no guarantees on terrain like this. Hello and welcome to stage 15 of the Tour de France. The only certainty today is that there'll be plenty of action. Starting in Bourg-en-Bresse, making its way through to Toulouse. It's 160 kilometres. There are 6 categorised climbs on the stage, but there's 10 climbs in total. They get a few bonus ones. And it includes the outside categorisation climb of the Grand Colombier. They descend down to the finish line and then back up the Grand Colombier again, but not all the way to the top, before descending through to the finish itself. Welcome to stage 15 of the Tour de France. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by a man who's won 12 stages in the race, 3 green jerseys. Robbie McEwen, we're into the mountains. We're not talking about the green jersey today. Today, it's all about yellow.
It's all about the fight for yellow. It's all about the big GC contenders and the climbers. But don't speak too soon, Matthew, on saying we're not going to talk about the green jersey, because the man wearing it, Peter Sagan, he's full of surprises, and I wouldn't be overly surprised if he pops himself into a break early on in this stage. But it's not realistically a stage he's going to win. But never say never with Peter Sagan.
He may well try and get in the breakaway, because there's only 3 mountains to get over before the intermediate sprint, and he's had his margin narrowed. It's now down to just a 62-point advantage over Mark Cavendish, which actually can be wiped away pretty quickly.
Inside one intermediate sprint and one finish could effectively put Cavendish in green. I don't expect it.
Inside the last 30 seconds before they roll away, 10 minutes neutral, then the flag will come in, and then the racing will really be on. Chance to look down upon this beautiful monastery, the Church of Saint Nicolas. Bourg-en-Bresse hosting a stage start, and it's hosted plenty of finishes of stages in the Tour de France before, often ones that have proved to be decisive. The last 10 seconds. And there is the green jersey, Peter Sagan, alongside Chris Froome, the overall race leader. They roll away. This moment, they all look relatively relaxed, but Nairo Quintana sitting towards the front. Surely the pressure is building internally for Nairo Quintana. Everybody has been expecting the attacks to come from the great Colombian climber, but he's yet to deliver any major punch. He hasn't really landed anything on the chin of Chris Froome.
Not yet, but at this point in the race last year, he also hadn't landed anything on the chin of Chris Froome. It all happened in that last couple of days. We're still a week away from Paris, but now is when it's got to start happening, because Nairo Quintana, he knows last year, he probably started risking it a little bit too late, making those big attacks and finally taking time. Had he started a little bit earlier, he may have been able to crack Chris Froome. But I wonder if his confidence is up to it, because he tried on the Mont Ventoux and he got dropped.
He said he made a mistake and he went too soon. Thomas de Gendt in the King of the Mountains jersey. He must go in the breakaway today. He must.
And he's starting on the front row because he's wearing that jersey. And even if he was second in that competition, I'm sure he'd be starting on the front row, or at least right tucked in behind it, ready to go again. And he knows that if he can get in the break today and Rafael Maker doesn't, he could effectively wrap up the King of the Mountains jersey on today's stage. There are so many climbs on offer. But he says, you know what? I want to have a man-against-man battle with Maker. I'm happy if he tries to go up the road, because I'll go too. I'd like to race for it.
What's happening here with Chris Froome? He's just gone a little bit further forward. Might be trying to get to the left-hand side of the road to adjust some sort of mechanical problem.
He's on the radio. Seems to be having a bit of computer trouble. Might have to dial a geek.
And hopefully he's got that all sorted out. Here's Geraint Thomas towards the front for Team Sky. He will be so valuable today, Geraint Thomas.
It's one of those stages where it's quite possible that Chris Froome will need to use up every single resource he's got. Every teammate, Thomas, and now even early on, Rowan Stannard, to try and control the attacks, make sure nobody dangerous on general classification slips into a breakaway. But Rowan Stannard, I think we'll find them pretty quickly dropped on a stage like this. All depends on how aggressive it is right from the start and who gets into the moves and how quickly it calms at the peloton. And here's a smiling face at the front of Mark Cavendish. And lucky he passed maths at school, because almost need a degree to count up as high as he needs to count the stage wins he's amassed in the Tour de France. 30. Okay, making it sound more complicated than it is, maybe, but let's just say that's a lot of wins. That's a lot of victory salutes.
Well, he's run out of fingers and toes to count with, so he's had to go in multiples of 10s now. It is extraordinary. 184 starters on the grid today in Bourg-en-Bresse. 185 riders finished yesterday, but Jens de Boucher, the Belgian rider from Lotto-Soudal, as we see one of his teammates, Marcel Seberg, come to the front, he crashed heavily with Matty Breschel, who abandoned the race. But Jens made it to the finish, but he hasn't made it to the start today.
No, and he's got a fractured shoulder blade, is the diagnosis, and a deep cut on his knee as well. So the Belgian is out of the race, but just a sign of how tough these guys are. Got back on, finished the stage with a fractured shoulder blade, a deep cut right on his knee.
I love this map of France, and the yellow, the Jura, that's where we are right now.
And also down in the corner there, Nice. And of course, here in France, officially 3 days of mourning in the country, and a lot of support going out to the city of Nice and the people of Nice.
And stretching to have a look to see if he can spot it. That was Fabio Sabatini from the edX Quick-Step team. Did the lead-out job yesterday for Marcel Kittel, who had to settle for minor placing, and he was understandably disappointed. More on that in a moment. Who goes first? Luke Rowe, the policeman at the front for Team Sky. The Tour director, Christian Prudhomme, is just about ready to take the flag away and let racing get started. And the race is official.